street gospel, light of the temple. Sword swing, killer live from the ghetto. The hood messenger, let them know hell's close. Black burial, the devil in a black cloak.
Yo, what is up? Welcome to the Street Gospel Podcast. I'm your host, Dave One, and this is episode number... Yo, Cam, what episode is this? 92, episode number 92. So, if you haven't checked out the latest episode, which is episode 91, go check that out. It was with Pastor Mondo from Resonate Church, LA. Definitely was a good story, man. So, check it out. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, look, we need to build up our subscribers. So, if you can, go ahead and hit that subscribe button on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. We'd appreciate it. It's because of you guys while we're here. So we just need to build a huger audience, get people out there. If you hear a podcast that you like, please send it to somebody that you think will benefit from it. Invite them to check out the podcast. We'd appreciate it. Things have been going good, man. We've been having a lot of people. Funny story is the other day we went to, what day was that, Cam? I think it was it Mother's Day? Yeah, Mother's Day we went to Longhorn. Remember we went to Longhorn with my father-in-law, my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law, my brother-in-law. The whole family went, right? So we're at Longhorn, and these two dudes at Longhorn start getting into it inside the restaurant. So we're eating, and they're arguing a little bit. Then they go, "Let's go outside." So they took it outside, two young guys, and then it was so funny because they're fighting right in front of Longhorn. So we walk out there, and the dads are jumping in, and the two guys they you could tell they were fighting for a little bit. So we're watching. I'm just looking, and we're like, oh, wow, man. Like, okay. So then all of a sudden, this lady comes up to me, and she looks at me, and she goes, "Hey, Dave, from Street Gospel Podcast. I love your podcast." It was the most random thing. Here we are watching these two dudes fight. She was actually watching them, too. And then she turns, she sees me, and like, just matter-of-factly, "Hey, Dave, from Street Gospel Podcast." And I was like, "What?" And she goes, "Yeah, me and my husband love your podcast. We watch it all the time." So props to her and her husband, man, for checking out the podcast. So random, but I appreciate that, man, because definitely people are watching. So that was a good turnout for us, but it was fun. But today we got a guest, man, and he hails from, I don't know, we keep getting these guys from La Puente, man. It's crazy. I don't know, they just keep popping up on my podcast. I guess it's a hot area, man, with a lot of good guests. But we've had Jesse Hoguin, we had Isaac Pedroza. And then today's guest, he is a husband, a father, he's a believer, he's an author, he is a reformed drug addict, he's reformed, incarcerated prisoner. I mean, he goes around, he preaches, he tells his story to everybody. He speaks at a lot of different places. He has a ministry called Trap Families. Does it all, man. We were laughing before the podcast started because we run in the same circles, kind of. We never met each other, but we know a lot of the same people. But I want you to welcome to the Street Gospel Podcast, Mr. Jojo Godinez.
Yeah.
What's up, brother?
What's up, brother, man? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. I crazy, all the circles that we we never crossed paths, but we like probably passed by each other at some sort of event or ministry thing, right?
Yeah, for sure. Most likely we did, man.
It's crazy, bro.
Yeah.
How you been, man? Thanks for coming out.
I've been good, man. God's been good to me, and just staying busy, man. Staying prosperous.
You got a lot of speaking engagements lately, man. We were trying to work out that the little date for you to come in, and you were out there, man, doing some stuff. What did you have going on this week?
Man, this week, I was on another podcast. Yesterday, I was on another podcast during the later afternoon. And before that, I was doing some motivational teaching over at UCLA in regards to the process of change and the therapeutic community.
Right on,
just how programs, intertwine with people's transitions, back into society. So that's, I love speaking in programs, you mentioned a recovering drug addict. I wasn't really a hardcore drug addict because I got busted real young. Yeah, I messed around and stuff. But I never wanted to go forward with that. So I sought treatment early. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and because of that, I ended up becoming a substance abuse counselor and stuff. And, it's a long story, but
I said reformed.
Reform for sure. Yeah. No, I did mess around and stuff, but you know what? I always tell people, you know, I never wasted $1 on drugs. It was either given to me or whatnot. You know, I never lost no homes, but you know, it is what it is.
Well, I'm glad you corrected me on that because sometimes you get people they want to live up to some crazier story than they actual live. But I think your story is crazy enough that you don't have to add that part in there.
Yeah, everybody, all my homies are going to be like, that fool was no drug addict. That fool was straight sober doing craziness. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
It's funny. Every single homeboy, when they ask, you know, somebody, was he an alcoholic or something? They're like, hell no. If anything, that fool was getting drunk off Gatorade because that's all he drank, you know? Funny, but yeah, that was my drink of choice.
Well, yeah, man. Well, my bad on that. We'll edit that part out. No, I'm just kidding.
Nah, it's all good.
What's the reception like for you when you go to places like UCLA and you speak about these things, man?
Well, usually, I mean, I'm referred through other, you know, agencies or somebody heard me speaking somewhere, so they're like, hey, can you come speak, you know, to our class or whatnot? Can you come and share some of your experiences, you know, as a juvenile in the system, because I speak a lot to like criminal justice, people that are going to school to become probation officers, parole officers, you know, just pursuing that criminal law aspect. So they want to hear how it was able to work for me, what worked, what didn't work, you know. Right. Mainly that's like the opening spiel, you know, what worked for you, Jojo, you know, what helped you in juvenile hall, what helped you in, you know, California Youth Authority, you know, what programs were available during your stay there and whatnot. So I get to share some of that stuff and what worked and what doesn't work, because as of right now, you know, our juvenile system, they don't offer no schooling, you know, of what I hear, you know. Right. I haven't really been in the juvenile system as much as the adult system, you know, in the last couple of years. But other people that I talked to said that, you know, they don't have no schooling for them. It's just all locked down. It's all just, you know, shut down program, you know.
Did they have that when you were busted?
When I was there, you were forced to go to school, you know what I mean? And I was just sharing with somebody recently, like in juvenile hall, though, you know, you got credits just for showing up, and you had to show up, you know what I mean? Unless you were in lockdown in the box somewhere, you were going to school. And I tell people, you know, most of the time, I got like most of my high school credits from simply writing letters home, you know, to family girls, but learning how to gang write, because all our teachers would do, like, man, just write something, you know what I mean? And I'll write letters all day, you know? Yeah. During that time, that's all I was doing. But I don't even remember any like specific topics that they ever taught us, like no history, no science, no English, you know, nothing.
Right.
But I got all my credits too. Eventually, I ended up graduating. I mean, I didn't graduate until I was like 23 years old, but I ended up graduating in the Youth Authority, you know. Right. But all of that was simply by just being locked up, you know what I mean? And I was kind of scared, though, when they passed that, where they made it a requirement that you had to exit out from high school to get your diploma. You had to take that exit exam. Right. And I was like, oh, shoot, this is going to be hard. You know what I mean? But somehow, some way, I don't even know if they just pushed us through or not. I don't even know if I really passed.
Maybe it was God, bro.
Yeah, God's favor. You know what I mean? But I did study for it, though. And, you know, as I went through it, I was like kind of, you know, I kind of knew what it was. You know what I mean? So I don't know. But I ended up getting my high school diploma in California Youth Authority.
Man, do you think the same stuff that you're speaking about that worked for you works for today? And what are some of those things that you say that would translate? Because it's probably changed so much since when you were younger, getting busted till now. But are there some common things that still work?
I would say in the Youth Authority that the only schooling that worked for me was the trade, because I was right here in Ontario, or Chino, I should say, in the Youth Authority, and in there you had to go to a vocational school. And that's where I learned how to build houses. Literally, I got certified in carpentry. And when I paroled from prison, that's what I pursued. I was a framer. I started building houses. And I learned all of that in the California Youth Authority. And I was very grateful that I knew that, you know, because, I mean, I came home with a trade, you know what I mean? And it's funny, though, David, because at that time, all the homies in there were all smoking, drinking coffee, telling war stories, lying. And I was in there in the books. We had a little classroom in the carpentry class in YTS, and the instructor allowed us to go in there and watch these videos, VHS videos on how to frame walls, how to do roofing, how to do staircasing, all this stuff concerning construction, right? And I would be in there watching these videos and taking notes. And one of the crazy things is they allowed us to do our own blueprints. If we drew our own blueprints according to scale and everything, and he corrected it, they would order all the material for us to build our actual house right there. Wow. So I had the privilege to build 3 different houses while there. I actually built a chapel while I was there with probably like a 20-foot cross that you could probably see from the streets. And it was cool though, because me and a couple of other brothers at that time that ended up getting saved, they ended up helping me with that. But most of the guys there, they didn't want to learn trades. I mean, in some trades, they had barber school, they had electrical, they had welding, auto body, masonry. They had all these different trades. And, one of the things that YTS is really known for is gladiator school. There was people in there getting stabbed, killed, hanging themselves. YTS was, it was crazy. But in all of that, though, you still had the opportunity to learn a trade, you know?
Yeah.
And I took advantage of that, especially because at that time I was already saved and serving God. And I believed that one day, God would free me,
Wow. Yeah, I think the trade thing, man, is big. Even now, there's a lot of kids that don't want to be in no trade, don't want to do nothing, don't know how to handle any tools or anything like that. Partly it's, the school's fault, parents' fault for not making them get some sort of knowledge when it comes to building something or working on something, right? It's like, and then, no auto shop, no wood shop. Like we were growing up, we had all that stuff.
Yeah, that was a part of the
That was cool,
school,
man.
Yeah.
Like you go to school and you're like, oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, I had wood shop.
Yeah, I had wood shop too. Sometimes we'd be making wooden knives in there on the grinder, having fun, whatever. But there was time when we actually built stuff, and it was like, okay, I built that. I learned how to take measurements or, learn how to work on a car or whatever. But now, all those programs are gone. And
everything is.
Then they wonder why you don't have nobody to fill the gaps for all these trade schools and stuff like that. But, I think that was huge, man. So you grew up in La Puente, right?
Yes, I did.
So what? How was that, and where did you start going wrong in your life in La Puente?
Well, I started. Man, my story's crazy, Dave, because I had good parents, man. I had real good structure in my home. My father was a Vietnam veteran, Marine, served our country, loved our country. To the day he died, he was gung-ho Marine, and my mother was a hard worker. She worked in warehouses mainly, stocking and, inventory and whatnot. So I don't have that gang story of, man, I was poor, we didn't have no running water, our lights were off. I didn't have any of that. I never experienced that, I didn't have to, no disrespect to anybody that came from that, I know it's real, but in my story, I wasn't a poor person, I didn't have to go out and sell dope. I didn't have to go out and rob nobody, but because of the streets and because my mom and father worked so many hours a day, I literally had to wake myself up for school, get dressed, and walk to the bus stop, catch the bus to school and whatnot. I didn't have to do that alone, though, because I had 20 other friends, all the same age. We all went to the same school. We all met at the same bus stop. So it was kind of like people would come knock on the door like, hey, well, you ready? And I'll be like, hold up, and eat a bowl of cereal, maybe eat some waffles or something, and then go to school. When I came home, the normal routine every single day was come home. I had to change out of my school clothes because, moms had that stuff on layaway, and I better not ruin it. You know what I mean? And I had to change my clothes.
Put on the play clothes.
The play clothes, exactly. Especially the shoes, what I mean? Change them play shoes, put them, change, and then go outside, During the 70s, early 80s, we didn't have, nobody wanted to be inside, what I mean? We wanted to be out there running around with our friends, riding on our bikes and, playing baseball in the streets, football, climbing trees.
You don't see none of that no more.
Yeah, not no more. Everybody's on their phones inside and whatnot. But we were outside, and because of that, though me and my young friends were young, we had older brothers, older sisters that were already involved in the neighborhood stuff. You see, because my sisters, they were my youngest sister, next to me, that's older than me. She's probably I want to say about 5 years older than me. And then the next sister is probably 5 more years older than me. And then the next one. So my oldest sister's probably I want to say maybe 15 years older than me.
Big gap.
Yeah. And then, and they're from different fathers. I never looked at my sisters as stepsisters. So, they've been in my life from day one.
So 3 sisters and you're the only brother?
I'm the only brother. I had other god brothers that were influences in my life that they would stay with us and always be with us and everything. But biologically, it was just me from my mom and my dad, and then my sisters were from another dad, but my dad pretty much raised them, most of my life and most of their life. And so what happened is they were originally from Boyle Heights. Northeast LA. My dad's from Boyle Heights. My mother's from Northeast LA, like the Clover area.
Okay.
So we grew up the first 3 years of my life in Cypress Park, which is Northeast LA. And my sisters started getting into trouble out there and stuff. And my mother, my dad, they figured, you know what, let's get out of LA. Let's go to the San Gabriel Valley. I had some cousins that were already living out here in San Gabriel Valley. And I always tell people, I don't know if my mom and dad looked at our house on a Sunday or something, early in the morning somehow. But where they placed us at, that's like right in the middle of just a few different cliques.
It just looked good that particular day.
Yeah, it looked good. I mean, it looked way better. I always tell people from Northeast LA and Cypress Park to going to La Puente, it was like night and day.
Right.
We had a big front yard. There was a lot of grass. There was trees and everything. And over there in where we came from, it was mainly like you didn't have no front yards. It was all street, and the houses were on hills, so you couldn't play football in the front yards or nothing like that. And the houses were up on hills looking down.
It's a trip that's such a small distance could change your whole perspective. I remember we lived on Salt Lake in Cudahy.
Oh, okay.
And we lived in the Cudahy apartments, and we moved around the block, and that was still Cudahy, but like you said, it was a house now. There was lawn. There was kids playing outside. It was a big difference than living on Salt Lake, across the street from the railroad tracks.
Yeah.
And then you move around the corner, and it's like a whole new world.
Yeah.
Especially when you're a kid.
Yeah, and that's what it was for me. And when I got there, like I said, there was a lot of kids my age. So, and there was, of course, kids there my sister's age that were already active. And so as soon as we moved in, it was like we started seeing everything that we saw in Northeast LA. You know, all the khakis, all the winos, everything was still there now. And it didn't take long for my sisters to start interacting with them, and started seeing drive-bys real young,
And La Puente's always been like a neighborhood,
more years than me.
It's always been rowdy. I'm a little familiar with the neighborhood, but not a lot. But it's always been a rowdy neighborhood.
As far as I know, it goes back to, probably like the 40s,
Wow.
what I mean? Some of my older homies that would tell me the stories, you know what I mean, from when they were, back in the days, growing up there in the 50s and 60s, and how it was crazy back then, but during the time that I was there, there was a lot, I know nowadays in the gang world, there's certain rules that are applied, but back then, I mean, doors were being kicked in, families killed, drive-bys were happening during that time, and there wasn't really no repercussions, you know what I'm saying? That stuff was just like, it was just happening. Everybody was doing it, and we witnessed that a lot, and my house was shot up a lot. Even as before I got active, I don't know if I'm blaming my sisters or her boyfriends or whatnot, because they were gang members, and everybody hung out on our street, in front of my house, in front of the neighbors' houses, across the street, there was just homies everywhere, and it was a middle class neighborhood. Like I said, I don't think any of my homies were really like just straight poor status.
They had working families.
Some of them didn't have a dad in the picture, though. I'll be honest. Some of them didn't have a dad in the picture. Some of them were on welfare, but it was still like reasonable. You know what I'm saying? There was like younger girls with babies and all that stuff. And growing up there, though, Dave, I did see not just the violence, but I saw a lot of sexual perversion. I seen a lot of Suicides were I witnessed like one guy hanging. Me and my friends found a guy hanging in his garage. You know what I mean? And I was like, what the heck? And it was kind of like Boys in the Hood. You want to see a dead body? You know what I mean? Like, come here. Like, there's somebody hanging over here. You know what I mean?
It becomes normal.
Why didn't they call the cops yet? You know what I mean? It was like us kids having to make a scene in order for the cops and everybody to come and stuff. Right. And it was crazy like that. And then my baseball coach as a young boy, I think I was in T-ball, which is like 5 years old. One of my main coaches, he committed suicide like right before Christmas. I remember it was right before Christmas. Crazy. I'm 5 years old and I'm hearing about this, you know what I'm saying? And then a good friend of mine, my neighbor, he got killed right in front of my house a little bit before 4th of July. And I knew it was before 4th of July because all my friends, we all had fireworks. You know, we used to get the bricks of firecrackers and jumping jacks and all that stuff. My neighbor was like one of the biggest fireworks dealer in the neighborhood, illegal fireworks, right? So everybody had like M80s and everything. So everybody would be lighting fireworks leading up to 4th of July, right? So I heard like bam, bam, bam in front of my house. And I look out to see which friends out there. And I seen the shooting. Boom, boom, boom. And yeah, my homeboy ended up dying like right in front of my house. You know,
that's wild.
Yeah,
man.
my homie that's my age, that was his older brother Jesse.
So you see all this going on. What is the appeal for you to be a part of it?
Nothing. You know what? And this is like the
how do you get sucked in?
God honest truth is I didn't even look up to my homies. I used to look at them as bums, to tell you the truth, because they'll be drinking, smoking that PCP. Some of them were, you know, smacked back on heroin. And me and my friends, I mean, we're playing ball. I always wanted to be a ball player. You know, my whole goal, I didn't want to be a dot. I just wanted to play high school ball. You know, I used to love them Friday nights. We used to go there and watch football games. And we used to go watch the older kids playing baseball and stuff out in on the high school field. And I was like, man, I can't wait to play there because, you know, that I would see them with all the cheerleaders and all the, you know, the girls. And, you know, they're the jocks. You know what I mean? And I started playing sports. One thing about my dad always had me in sports. You know what I mean? Baseball, football. I mean, I wrestled, I boxed. I did a lot of, you know, sports. And my friends, you know, we grew up playing sports in the streets, and a lot of us played organized sports. Almost all of us were, you know, from T-ball all the way up, you know. And so what happens, what I'm saying, though, is that that's what I wanted to do. I didn't want to be a drunk. I used to think that they used to dress funny. I used to clown my sisters. You look like clowns because, you know, they were them cholas from the 70s and 80s with their face all white, looking all their war paint on. And I was like, man, these girls are ugly. You know what I mean? And I used to clown my sisters. You know what I mean? I love my sisters, but I'd clown them as a young boy, you know, and all her friends. And I remember the homies and stuff, but I never looked up to them. You know, really, I had a lot of animosity towards my dad. But my dad was my hero, and that's who I wanted to follow. I wanted to be a Marine like my dad, too. You know what I mean? I was like, yeah, when I'm able to go to the Marines, I'm going to go to the Marines, you know? And it was probably like when I was like in 7th grade when I first started reaching out to the recruiting office, like, man, you know, what do I got to do? What do I got to do? And they were like, just stay in school, stay in school, stay in school. You know, that's what they were telling me.
You were ready. You're playing sports. You had a decent home. Mm-hmm. You had people that loved you. Yep. You had a roof. I mean, you had a roof over your head. You had food. I mean, clothes. You had all. You know, you're doing what you were supposed to do. Yeah. And then what happened?
What happened is that street life. I'm telling you, just me being in the streets.
Did you get caught up, or did you make a conscious decision to say, I'm gonna?
No, and I'm not just going to say I got caught up. It was like. It was a transition that when I look back, I was like, dang, how did I fall for the okie doke? You know what I mean? Because, I mean, a lot of it came from, like I said, we're playing sports outside. When our older sisters, brothers, friends are fighting in the streets, we would have bats and everything already. And we're like, hey, is that Nestor fighting? Like, who's he fighting with? Like, that's someone from somewhere else. We would run over there and jump in as young kids. We'd start fighting with whoever it was because on our street and on my neighborhood, we had a thing. Like, we could fight with one another. All 20 of us kids, we could fight.
Of course, yeah.
We'll shake hands, hug, and go eat afterwards or whatever, spend the night at each other's house. But you weren't allowed to come from the next street over or any other street onto our block and mess with any of us. Not that any of us couldn't, you know, go heads up, but no, most of the time, maybe we would go head up and we got the best of somebody or we didn't. But either way, you were still going to end up getting jumped. Right. Either way, we were all going to end up jumping on you for coming to our neighborhood, you know? And that wasn't even like gang mentality. That was just like, that's my friend. That's my homie. I got his back, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And somewhere down the line, you know, all of us had that expectation of one another, you know, to have each other's backs.
Right.
And even at school, when we're fighting at school or something, somebody's getting into something, we're like, hey, is that what's name over there? What's going on over there? We'll go over there. Next thing you know, we have a circle and we're getting down. You know what I mean? That's just the way it was. And then later on, you know, preteen, you know, like maybe like 12 years old, things started getting more serious where, you know, guys started coming and trying to jump out of cars on us where we weren't officially throwing up the neighborhood to them or whatnot. But I guess they were like, going back and saying, yeah, they lived there, and hey, they jumped on us last time. Them kids came over and started hitting us with bats and whatnot. And they were probably assuming, it's just a matter of time before they get into the neighborhood anyway,
So you were more guilty by association.
I think all of us kids were guilty by association. But there came a time, though, like I said, when they would come and start trying to jump out of cars on us and, disrespecting the neighborhood and stuff.
Now you
like, what?
Now you got to make a decision, right?
Yeah, now we're like, you know what? Like, forget you. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
They're like, we're not even from that neighborhood, but forget you. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not just going to come over here and disrespect our brothers and sisters' neighborhood,
Yeah.
And then, of course, one thing led to another where, pride started getting in the way, and we started being introduced as like the little homies from the older guys. Yeah, that's, the little homie Jojo right there. That's the little homie, Chubbs. And these were all our nicknames growing up, but our family names, all of us that had our nicknames. Well, Jojo wasn't like my official gang nickname. That was my family nickname, and everybody knew me by that name. But later on, though, what happened is I ended up leaving all my friends, though. I ended up getting kicked out of the 6th grade, and I ended up leaving that school district, leaving all my friends, and I got placed somewhere where I wasn't getting along with a lot of guys. So now I'm fighting there, and things are going crazy. And I had promised my mom, like, Mom, we'll do good in this school. I promise you. But as soon as I get there, dudes are hating on me. They start recognizing what side of town I'm from. They're like, this fool don't even belong over here, And one thing led to another where, I started getting in trouble in school again. And then by the 9th grade, I got caught with a knife at school. And they expelled me from that school district again, which was like almost 3 years from the 6th grade when I officially got kicked out of that school district. I got kicked out of that school district for fighting with the vice principal. Yeah, me and like 3 other friends, we jumped the principal. Well, we didn't jump him. That dude was grabbing me by my arm and taking me to the office. And my friends saw me, and they went and tackled him and fell down, and they ran. And I ended up getting in trouble for that and got kicked out. I got expelled for it. It was right at the end of the school year, too, 6th grade school year. So 7th grade, 8th grade, I went to this other school in the other school district. And then in the 9th grade, I was fighting a lot. People were threatening me. So I went with a knife, and I got caught as I was leaving the school. Security came up on me, searched me. They found the knife, and I ended up getting expelled. And what happens is they end up sending me back to my original school district. So when I go back, all my old friends, they're already like active now. They're like, they're like hardcore into it and stuff. And I'm still just claiming Puente in general, just like the city. Like, that's where I'm from, Puente, right? But when I get over there, they're all hanging out on this certain street, called Cadbrook, and everybody was there at that time. During the late 80s, like 88, 89, that was the hangout. And in La Puente, there's a lot of different cliques that are out there.
Yeah.
A lot of cliques. Right. But a lot of cliques that were united, we would hang out there. There was probably like about a good 5 different cliques that would hang out right there. I'm talking about maybe like 50 guys just every day, just hanging out, like one house here, across the street, and just that whole section had nothing but gang activity. And when I started going over there, the homies were like, man, you might as well get jumped into the clique now, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I ended up getting into the clique, and things started really like going fast. I mean, prior to that, I had been fighting a lot, using certain weapons and stuff. But over there, though, that's when we started getting into like assault rifles and like crazy stuff.
And so you're at a young age, you're already exposed to a lot. You've already been around the block a few times. You know what to expect. You know what's expected.
Yeah. And I knew all of them, though. I mean, everyone there I knew from prior years, from playing baseball, football, growing up. Right. And what's crazy, though, Dave, and it's probably hard to explain, though, but I'm originally from like the east side of La Puente, right? So all my friends over there these were like my brothers. These were like the 20 friends I told you about. These were like my brothers, my homies. But the clique I'm from is from the other side of town, which is probably, a couple of miles away. I mean, Puente from where I was at there, maybe like 5 miles away is like where my clique is at.
Wow.
And then but all them guys, though, were guys that I went to school with and everything. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And it was crazy over there. I mean, the homies where I grew up at this point in time, I mean, they're down and whatever, but they weren't as active as my other homies. I mean, they were active, but not like these other homies.
Right.
I mean,
So do they end up being your enemies?
who?
The friends that grew up in the other neighborhood that you knew initially, and then when you got
No, in the east side, no. What happened is all my homies from the other side of town were all now homies with the east side.
Okay.
So if anybody ever messed with the east side, they knew they had to mess with me, and I was bringing all the other side of town with me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it was like east side just got that much bigger. You know what I mean? But
Can't beat them, join them.
yeah, but at 16 years old. Prior to that, though, Dave, I mean, I had started getting in trouble with the law. I would say probably like at 6 years old. Six years old.
Juvenile stuff?
Juvenile stuff were stealing candy, vandalizing, writing on walls, breaking into the train tracks. We used to live by the train tracks, so we'd go break into the carts and stuff.
And what's your parents saying at this time when you're getting
My parents,
initially?
I would get whipped by my dad. You know what I mean? I mean, sometimes back then the cops would take me straight home. If I get caught with a stolen bike or something, they'll throw the bike in the trunk, put me in the back seat, take me home, tell my dad, my mom, or whoever, yeah, he got caught with a stolen bike. My dad would whip me right in front of the cops. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And but after a while, though, I wasn't. My dad tried to discipline me. My dad, I mean, it wasn't just like he turned the other cheek with me. No, my dad put hands on me. You know what I mean? And one thing about my dad being a Marine, he brought me up in a certain way, Dave, where, I blamed him a lot growing up for a lot of my anger, a lot of my just hatred, because, of course, I could never fight him, you know what I mean? But he would hit me, he would hit me, and I deserved to be hit, you know what I mean? But there was really like no correction. It wasn't really like I just felt it in rage. Like
it was punishment, but it wasn't discipline.
Yeah,
right.
And I don't think
That's
my
the
dad.
difference.
And you know what though? I give my dad a lot of credit though, because my dad didn't have his dad around. My dad's dad left him. My grandfather left him when he was like 3 years old. You know what I'm saying? And he grew up with different guys coming in and out of his life. And then when he joined the Marines, he came back and tried to be a dad to me and my sisters, but yeah, my dad just hit me. There was no really, he like, oh, you got caught stealing? Okay, bam, 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 like don't steal no more. You know what I mean? But I wouldn't listen, and my dad used to get mad at me though, because he would, I would have money. One thing about me and my home is that I was responsible for cleaning my yard. I had this big old tree, and I had to rake up every single leaf, bag it up, have it ready before my dad got home. Before I was officially allowed to go out and play with my friends, I first had to clean up my yard. I had to make sure my room was immaculate. My bed had to be made before I left to school. My trash can had to be emptied. There couldn't be no trash nowhere. Everything had to be nice and tidy. It was like literally he would come home and inspect. You know what I mean? It was kind of like he would get the white gloves and kind of like look for dust, I'd be like, dang. And if it wasn't like that, I would catch the blues. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Literally, my dad would like go off on me. And in my house too, there was no accidents. Like if I dropped a glass of milk, it wasn't an accident. I did that on purpose. I broke the glass that I didn't pay for, and I was going to be hit for that.
So no love?
There was love.
Or a
you know
type
what I mean?
of love.
There was a type of love. I felt love because they provided for everything for me, and I felt, and it's crazy though, and I'll get to it right now though. But when my dad hit me, I felt like he cared. I felt like he loved me, like he, because and I say that because there came a time where my dad literally, like, I was probably about 13 years old, and my friends, we used to shoot out all the lights with BB guns, right? All the light bulbs would be out, and my mom used to go to work early, like at 5 a.m, and my dad used to tell me, your mom has to go out there when it's dark, you know what I mean? Why are you shooting out the lights for? Like, don't be stupid, And one day I came home, and he like just pushed me, and he was like, didn't I tell you don't be shooting out? I was like, I didn't even shoot out the light. I didn't shoot out the light, but there's a gang of other kids on this block, you know what I'm saying? Like, but I took it really personal, and he made it personal, right? And that day he wiped his hands, Dave. He literally like was like, I'm done with you. You know what I mean? If you want to spend your life in jail and prison and all that stuff, like, go do it. I'm done with you. And I would get in trouble, and he wouldn't hit me no more. And I was like, what the heck? And it was then that I really felt like my dad didn't love me no more. I felt like my dad turned his back on me.
Crazy.
And when I did get busted, I ended up getting busted a couple of days later, because he actually told me, he said, yeah, I'll call the cops on you or something. And I got so mad when he said that, I threw the phone at my dad. And I like, call him then. Here, call him. It was a landline phone, you know, one of the ones he hang up. And
heavy one.
Yeah, and I throw it at him. I'm like, here, call the cops. You know what? I don't care. And I ended up getting busted. Like right after that happened, like 2 days later. I like didn't run away from home. I just ran down the street to my sister's house, and they knew where I was, but I wasn't going home. And I ended up getting busted during that time. And I remember when my mom came to see me in Los Padrinos in Downey, right? And I was like, where's my dad at? And she's like, yeah, he thought you wouldn't want to see him, you know what I mean? I said, I don't want to see him, you know? I'm glad he didn't come or whatever. And yeah, me and my dad, we were like kind of banging heads. And my dad he was what you would call a functioning alcoholic, because I'm telling you, that dude, he worked in the steel mills in the city of Commerce for like 45 years. Like all of my life, he worked there, you know what I mean? But every day he would come home with like a 6-pack, a 12-pack. He would go to his room, pound. My mom would serve him dinner in the room. He would pass out, wake up 5 a.m, go to work again.
Wow.
Come home. And sometimes I used to think that, you know, that's why he would be so mad, is because, you know, when he was drunk, he was a happy dude, you know, give you money, you know, especially like, and it's crazy though, because a lot of my family, they never witnessed that. My cousins, my aunts, uncles, they never witnessed like the angry side of him. Because when we go to family events and he's drinking, he's dancing, he's giving out money, he's the life of the party, he's cool, you know what I'm saying? But at home, when he's not drunk and he's probably, you know, wanting a few beers, that's when he would come home. And he would come home real on the edge, you know, like I said, with the glove and looking at everything, making sure. And if there was anything left behind or whatever, there was a dish inside the sink, I'm getting hit for it. And what's crazy is he wouldn't discipline my sisters, because I told you they weren't his kids. So I used to be like, man, why aren't my sister would come home drunk and high or whatever at different times, and nothing would happen to them. My mom would deal with them, you know what I mean? But I'd be mad at my dad, like, why aren't you kicking them through the drywall? Why are you always taking it out on me? Because like I said, though, there was never no accidents that were acceptable in my home. You know what I mean? We'll be outside playing ball and accidentally break a window. I did that on purpose in his perspective, you know what I mean? And I'd get hit for it.
So that drove a rage inside of you to kind of rebel?
There was times when I started fighting at a young age, there was times when I would literally like black out and think I was fighting my dad, like finally getting the best of my dad. Wow. And in my head, I used to think like, man, I can't wait to, you know, get older where I could, you know, fight back and defend myself, you know? Like I used to feel like that. And a lot of times when I would be banging and stuff, and what I was really mad at my dad about later on in life, after talking to psychiatrists and all kinds of different people, is that a lot of my anger and rage was because my dad never allowed me to express any emotion other than that. Because when I would get hurt or something, I'd come home bleeding and stuff, and my dad would grab me and be like, don't cry, stop acting like a little girl, you know, like toughen up, you know. He'd put lemon on it and try to like, I'm like, man, just put alcohol if you're going to put something, you know. But he had this thing about lemon where he would put some lemon on me, try to disinfect me and stuff, but he wouldn't let me cry, you know what I mean? He would literally like shove like a bandana or something in my mouth, like bite down on this and stop crying, you know, like just like take the pain, you know what I mean? And I grew up with that mentality, like, you know, just take the pain, you know what I mean? And a lot of that, you know, instead of expressing any kind of other emotions, that would be my aggression would come from a lot of that.
So eventually it would just explode into being violent?
Yes, exactly. But my dad, though, Dave, he was like I said, he was like my hero growing up. I never wanted to be like them gang members, you know what I'm saying? And then in the transition, my dad didn't really say anything when I started like wearing the bigger clothes. It just came where, you know, from regular clothes, regular sizes to like now. But my sisters used to dress me like in baggy clothes, white t-shirts and stuff, you know what I mean? They would be ironing for me and stuff, as you know, when they found out I had a little girlfriend, you know, they were like, yeah, you need to comb your hair this way, you know, forget all that. Because I was a break dancer, so I used to dress like a break dancer for a lot of years, you know what I mean?
We're gonna have to pull up that clip or something, bro.
But yeah, I was a break dancer. That's what I was into, man. And we would be breaking in the streets and stuff, and gang warfare would happen and stuff. And then by 7th grade, I started hanging out with these other. Remember, I went to this other side of town, so I met other people over there, and there was like these older guys that I was cool with, and they were into DJing and stuff, you know. And they were called the Main Attraction. And on that side of town, it was a little bit different than my side of town of Puente. You know, it was still La Puente, but more West Covina type of Puente.
Okay.
Because it was La Puente High School, then there was Nogales, which was way further down. You know what I mean? It's still in the city of La Puente, borderline West Covina, but it was just different. When I went to that school, when you're in the schools in La Puente, majority everyone there is Hispanic, right? I had a couple of homies that were straight black, but like they were us. You know what I mean? They grew up with us, so you know you didn't even look at them as black. They were just like that was just the homies. But when I went to Nogales, there was a lot of blacks, there was a lot of Asians, there was a lot. It was like crazy, right? And I was fighting with almost everybody. And then when I went back to the other side of town, and I was like more, but well, that time though in 9th grade though, I was already like hair slicked back, you know, white t-shirts, khaki pants, and all that. And when I got over there, my dad, like, they never said anything about the way I dressed or when I'd come home fight and my dad would find out I got in a fight, he would just like, "Are you all right?" And I'm like, "Yeah," and that would be it. It wouldn't be like, "What did you fight about?" or "What happened?" or nothing. You know what I mean?
You think they didn't want to know?
I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what their perspective was of that transition. You know what I mean? Because it just like, it wasn't from one day, you know, I'm playing sports and the next day I'm gang banging. You know what I mean? It was like I was playing sports and gang banging, playing sports, gang banging, and eventually it was gang more hanging out.
Outweighs the sports.
Yeah.
So you got caught up in something. If we can fast forward a little bit, that put you up against you got a life sentence.
Yeah, 16 years old. 16 years old. It was
So you talk about a quick transition right there from playing ball when you're like 12 years old, and then 16 getting busted for
Yeah, but prior to that, though, I had already been busted for weapons. I'd been busted for assault. I had been like,
but that progression was going quickly.
Yeah,
we're talking like a couple years. Yeah, where it just escalated really fast.
Yeah, all of that stuff. You know, I mean, it was the innocence of me per se. It was gone, and I think the street life. What happened though in '88? I had a 4-year-old nephew that died. And this was like this. I was his Nino. He lived with me. This was one of my nephews. My sister lived with us, and this little boy was my everything. And when he died, that forced me out to the streets, David. And something happened to me where I literally like went to the dark side even so much more. Because during that time, I mean, I was a gangbanger. I don't want to sound like all hardcore, make it seem like every day I woke up wanting to go kill one of my enemies or something. It wasn't like that, you know. In my neighbor, like I said, all of us friends, we all knew each other. So it wasn't like, I don't know. It wasn't, I never looked at my homies as like, that's my gang member homie type of thing. It was always like my friend, you know what I'm saying? Like we grew up always having each other's backs, playing ball, you know what I mean? We knew everyone's families and everything. So it was like we would just be hanging out in the neighborhood like we always did, but we weren't playing kickball. Now we're into girls. Now we're into like selling dope, making money, you know what I'm saying? But all that money used to go eating and buying clothes and stuff. And it wasn't like we woke up every day just plotting to go out there and do something crazy. We were just hanging out as we always did in the neighborhood. But unfortunately, you know, other gangs wanted to come by and, you know, we would fight with them, have shootouts with them. And, you know, sometimes we would go to their neighborhood, look for them, you know what I mean? But majority of the day, though, it wasn't like we were just on a sick one wanting to go hurt somebody. And I could say this for most of my homies that I was with, that I grew up with. We weren't out there just trying to rob old ladies. We weren't like that gang member just ruining our neighbors, you know, homes and whatnot and just thrashing our neighborhood. We weren't like that. We would hang out and we would, you know, defend our turf, if you could say that. And if nobody came by, nobody came by. It was cool. You know, we were right there just hanging out, you know, messing with girls and clowning around, you know, just doing simple stuff. But what happened one day, though, is back in 89, it was January the 17th of 1989. I was in the garage of one of my homies' house, and my other homies rode up in this stolen truck. Two homies rode up, and they were going to go pick up these girls from another high school in our enemy's neighborhood, and they were like, "Go with us, fool." And I was like, "Man, I'm hanging out waiting for these other girls already. I'm not trying to go with you." Like, them girls they mentioned, I didn't even know who they were. So I was like, I don't got no play over there. I'm waiting for these other girls to come. And they were like, "Just go with us, fool, real quick." And because I knew where they were going, and I'm like, yeah, I'll go with them just in case something happens. These are my homies, you know what I mean? But I told them, though, bring me right back, though. You know what I mean? Whatever you guys got planned, bring me right back, though, you know? So when we go, we pick up these two girls as we're leaving. I mean, I kind of knew that if we go over there are chances that we may bump into somebody. That's the whole purpose in me going, right? But I didn't go with no gun. I didn't go, with the ski mask, ready to go on no mission. I was going to go pick up these girls, but if something happened on the way there, then, so be it, Right. That's just neighborhood stuff, So we're going, we pick up these girls as we're leaving. My homie tells me we're leaving the school. As soon as we're leaving the school, we're going down this street, and my homie tells me, hey, there's a the other day we chased some fools over here, right? And I was like, where at? And he said, right there where the garage door is open. As we pass by in the garage door is open, and there's a bunch of fools in there, a bunch of dudes. And as we drive by, of course, we throw up our neighborhood. What's up, fools? They throw up theirs. They start running out, they're throwing rocks at us, all kinds of stuff. And my homie takes off, right? He's like just driving. And as we get to the corner, that fool's making a U-turn because I'm like, how you get out of here anyway? Your way? You know how to get out of here? And he's like, yeah, we got to go this way. So he's making a U-turn. And at that moment, they're like in the street and they're like coming out. There's a lot of them. And my homie in the back seat, he's back there with two girls. Originally, I was in the back seat. But when the girls got in, I went to the front seat. To the passenger side. My homie's driving and he's in the back with these two girls. The homie in the back tells me, open the glove compartment, there's a gun in there. So I open it up, and instead of me handing it to him, I'm figuring it's his gun. He knew it was in there. I get it. I step out of the car. I'm telling the dudes come my way. I end up getting out. I end up shooting. People are scattering and whatnot. We jump back in the car. We take off, and I go back to my neighborhood. And hours later, I had told him, though, go get rid of this truck, get rid of it. You know what I mean? There was like a location where we used to go burn our cars, our G-Rides and stuff. And that was a stolen truck. And this was right after school, about maybe 2:30. I don't remember what time, but it was right after school. So they take me back to my neighborhood, back to my house. I go there, I shower. I'm like, I always tell people, in the streets, we had this understanding that if you urinate on your hands, it erases the gunpowder. So I'm in the shower peeing on my hands. I'm getting bleach. I'm like bleaching my arms, trying to get rid of it, because there was a lot of times cops would come.
So at 15, 16 years old, you already know the tricks of the trade.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, the rumors of the trades, right?
Right.
Because there was times when the cops would pick us up off the streets and they would take us into the station and they would get them cotton swabs and wipe our hands, put us under the purple lights to see if there was gunpowder and whatnot. And then they would try to frame us, you know what I'm saying? So we already kind of knew, but somebody said, yeah, you could get rid of the gunpowder. I don't even think it worked. So because later on they were like, when they did test me, which was like 2 weeks later, I still had gunpowder on me. Like it burned into my skin. And, so anyways, though, I end up going home. I do all that thing, wash my clothes, I change, I go back to my neighborhood where everybody's always at.
So is that a common occurrence for you at this point? Like this is just every day, not every day,
but things happen.
This is not the first time.
It's not the first time. Things happen. You know what I'm saying? So anyways, I go back to the neighborhood. I go back over there, and I'm asking all the homies there in the neighborhood. I was like, hey, where's the homies at? And they were like, they're not here. Like, when you guys left, they never came back. I'm like, they haven't came back. And this is already like almost 6, 7 o'clock, right? And I'm like, where the heck are they at? And my neighborhood is right by the police station, right by the sheriff's station. And next thing you know, you see a bunch of sheriffs flying up the street, and we're looking, and we're like, where are they going? Where are they going? And we had police scanners, so we're like, turn on the scanners, man. Where are they going? What's happening? And we're listening, and we weren't catching anything, we weren't catching anything, but they were flying. Next thing I know, my homie that was driving, he runs back. He's all sweaty and dirty, and I'm like, what happened? What's going on? He said they caught the girl, one of the girls and one of the guys in the car. Like, they had still went around joyriding.
Wow.
This is already like 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. It happened at 2 o'clock, 2:30.
A few hours later.
And so I'm telling him, like, what the heck? And my heart's beating fast. I go home. I tell my mom, I'm going to go to my sister's house. I had a sister that lived in Almani. I'm getting a backpack together. I'm telling her, hey, Mom, I'm going to go to my sister's for a little bit. You don't know this, though, Actually, I think I told my mom, like, I'm going to go somewhere. I didn't tell her where I was going, you know what I mean? Yeah. But I told her I'm going to go somewhere. I'll get at you later, you know what I mean? And I don't know what ended up happening. I think I was trying to get a ride or something, and it wasn't happening. And then my homeboy, the one that was in the back seat with the girls, his brother calls me, and he said, yeah, my brother got busted, but my mom and dad are going to go pick him up right now. And I'm like, they're going to pick him up? Like, they're letting him go? And he's like, yeah, they got him for stealing the car. It was a stolen car, right? And I was like, that's what they got him for? And he's like, yeah. I said, man, when he gets there, tell him to call me, you know? So I'm like on standby. And the homie tells me, yeah, they got me for the GTA. They got me for the stolen car. I said, who was with you? He said, one of the girls. And I was like, I said, they didn't even ask you about what happened earlier? And he's like, nah, they didn't even ask about that. And I'm like,
are you suspect on him right now?
I am.
Right.
100% I am. You know what I mean? Because where they got caught at, it's probably like 2 minutes away from where we did the shooting. It's right there. It's not even far. It's right like in the same.
And he's out.
So I'm already thinking like, man, you know, like I'm thinking, and I ended up leaving his house and going to the girl's house. You know, I ended up finding out like, hey, who is I didn't even know these girls. And I'm like trying to find out, and I end up finding out, where does she live? They're like, oh, she lives right here on this street in that corner house. I'm like, okay. I go and knock on the door. I'm like, hey, what happened? You know, what them cops ask you, you know? I was like, you know me? And they were like, yeah, you're. I was like, no, you don't. You don't know me. You don't know me. Like, and I was like, listen, though, man, if they come back and ask you any other questions, you don't know nothing. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, listen, you don't know nothing. And come to find out, that was one of my older homeboys' daughters, one of my OG homies, one of my veterano homies' daughters. And I didn't realize this until later on when I go through the process, right? So, anyways, I said, if that's all they got him for, you know, I had the hunches, but at the same time, I'm giving them benefit of the doubt that they didn't say nothing, you know? So I stay in the neighborhood. For like 2 weeks. I'm still running around the neighborhood. The cops are still pulling us over. Never mention nothing. You know, they're taking pictures of us as a group. They used to do that. You know, just pull us over and take pictures. You know, make us take off our shirts, take pictures of our tattoos and stuff. But they never took me in. They never questioned. They never brought it up. So I'm thinking, okay, you know, and there was a lot of shootings going on at that time.
You might be safe.
Yeah, there's a lot of shootings going on at that time. You know what I mean? And so I'm like, okay, you know, I'm good, you know? And then 2 weeks later, I had got really sick with the flu or something. And at this time, I'm going to continuation school. I'm in bed, right? I'm in bed, and I hear all the dogs barking in my neighborhood. I hear all the dogs are barking. I peek out the blind, and I see all the cops right there in my front yard. I'm like, oh, shoot. I go to the backyard because my homies live in my backyard. They live, like, their houses are behind me, and we have a ladder that goes to their house, right? So I'm like, I'm going to go, let me go to the backyard. And I get there, and there's cops right there with rifles pointing at the house already. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I go back to bed. I just jump back in bed. You know what I mean? Next thing I know, I hear them boom, 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 like open the door. My sister opens the door. They come in. They put me at gunpoint, and they tell me that, you know, I'm being arrested for 187, you know, and I'm like, man, whatever. They take me in. They start telling me, you know, what, you know, by this time, I'm already knowing, though. I don't say nothing. I don't know what you're talking about. That was my story all the way through. I don't know what you're talking about. My other homie was right there, the driver of the car. So he wasn't with me, but I seen, like, when I was walking by, he was in the other holding tank. So I'm like, okay, they got him too, you know? So I'm looking for the other homie, and he's not there. Me and the other homie, they put us in the van, take us to Los Padrinos, and we're talking. We're like, where's you know, the other homie at and stuff? Wow. And they're like, I don't know. So we get there, and by the time we go to court, my attorney, I ended up getting a private attorney, and he ends up showing me the paperwork, everything that my crime partner had said, you know. So I was like, we're done, you know, we're done. So we ended up fighting in juvenile hall for almost 12 months, almost a whole year, and we ended up going to adult court. They tried us as an adult just because we had other, you know, crimes and everything, and they were able to prove that it was done in the benefit of gang terrorism. So they were trying us as an adult. We start going to adult court. During 1989, though, they can't bond you over to Superior Court and try you on hearsay. So what happened is my crime partner ends up leaving to Mexico, and they don't have no witnesses. All the guys that we shot at, everyone that, you know, were potential witnesses, all of them said it wasn't me. Even the girl ended up coming to court. This is when I find out my homie she's related to my homie, and my homie even spread word and got word back to me. Don't worry about nothing. She's pleading the fifth. You know, she ain't going to say nothing. So she ends up pleading the fifth. The homie doesn't come in. They release us. I end up going back out to the streets. Me and my homie out there a year. We go back out there. We're right back in the mix. I'm telling my mom, you know, I'm going to do good this time, Mom. You know, I kept on telling her that. Same old stuff. I'm going to do good, Mom. I promise you. And I was trying to do good. I mean, inside of me, I wanted to do good. And I'm thinking like, man, I just got off a serious case. You know, like I need to lay low. So I end up.
Let me ask you a question about that.
Yeah.
So somebody was killed in that shooting.
Actually, in that event right there, it was just attempted murder. I had 5 attempted murders and conspiracy to murder.
You shot in the direction of 5 people?
It was more than that, but 5 of them were the ones that were willing to originally give a report and say, yeah, he shot at us.
So other gang members were willing to did that.
But they didn't go to court and testify, though. On paperwork.
And then your homeboy fled.
Yeah, my homeboy fled.
Okay. So in the act of gang warfare, that's common, right? You know that's what you expect.
Yeah.
But the going to court, your friend, at first, did you feel like, hey, he snitched on us?
I didn't until I actually saw the paperwork. I was in denial the whole time. And this homie though, he wasn't born and raised with us in the neighborhood.
Okay. That's what I was going to ask.
He was from Huntington Park. He moved there in the 7th grade or something. He moved there when I was already at the other school, but he got close to a lot of homies there. And he was downer than heck, though. This dude was, he was a shooter. He was a fighter. This dude was he was down for the cause. And eventually the homies, pretty much asked him hey, you're banging on all our enemies. You might as well be from our neighborhood now. Cause he was claiming the neighborhood from LA. And he's probably one of the only people that had ever went from one neighborhood into our neighborhood. Almost all of my homies are all born and raised in Puente. Grown up in Puente for the most part. We never, I can't think of no other homie besides him. But because he was down and he was putting in work, he was if you want to be from our neighborhood, we're willing to take you in. So he went through the whole procedure, got jumped in and everything, gave him a new nickname and everything, and started banging with us. So, as down as he was, I thought for sure, 100% thought that he wouldn't say anything. So when the cops started telling me, hey, your homeboy already told us what happened, you might as well just tell us, you know what I mean? And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Did you ever see that guy again?
I did see him again.
Really?
I seen him in juvenile hall. I went to the hole while I was in juvenile hall. I went to the hole and they had him in there in protective custody. He was in literally juvenile hall PC. And because I was in the hole, he was in the hole, and he was right across from me. And I thought I was tripping when I seen him though, because in juvenile hall in the box, it's just one little window, right? And I was looking through the window, and he was right across. And I'm like, hey, fool, you're a rat. I'm getting at him. And he was like, man, I got us into this. I'm going to get us out of this. You know what I mean? And I think he was saying that because, the whole thing was to go pick up his girlfriend. You know what I mean? And I think he was literally saying, without me having to go over there in the first place, none of this would have happened or whatever. But he said, though, I'm going to get us out of this. Don't worry about it. And sure enough, I thought he did get us out of it because he left. He never testified, right?
Right.
So, long story short, though, let's bring it up to speed. I'm out on the streets again. I'm thinking I beat that case, Dave. I'm thinking he beat that. That's done. That's a part of history now.
How long are you on the streets till this next occurrence?
So the next occurrence.
How long do you think you're free of this case? It's done.
It ended up being 2 years.
Okay.
But during them 2 years, though, I'm still in the neighborhood. I'm getting busted left and right I got busted for a stolen car.
But that whole thing's out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah. I'm thinking
it's over.
That's over with. I go to juvenile hall 3 other times for other stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For an assault, for robbery, for 3 different things. I end up going back to juvenile hall, and I'm never thinking of none of that stuff, right? But during that time, though, I had got with one of my homegirls. We got pretty serious. She's there with me most of the time. Every time I got out, I'd go back with her and whatnot. And then I ended up getting her pregnant during that 2-year span. I get her pregnant. And I'm in and out, though, juvenile hall still, right? But I get her pregnant. And then after she got pregnant, we were talking about getting married and stuff. We were still young. I was still I think I was 17 at the time.
You're living a wild life, bro.
It's a wild life. And my homegirl, though, she's a wild life, too. She's crazy, too, though. Me and her, we were like Bonnie and Clyde, you know what I mean? She's crazy and stuff, man. And get her pregnant. You know, my dad has this father and son talk with me again. Finally, he's like, what are you going to do? You going to keep on being a kid, or you going to be a dad? You going to man up? You going to get a job and support this, you know, support your girl and support your kid? And I was like, yeah, Dad, you know, I'm already starting to work and whatnot. And I did. I got off one of the cases, and my sister lets me go to her house in Almani. The same sister I was always running to. That's my older sister. I always say she's like my other mom, because whenever I'd get in trouble, I'd go over there, or if I'd get in trouble at home, my mom and dad would send me to her, right? So she tells me, why don't you come and live over here with me? I got an extra room and stuff. So I got a job over there in Almani. I was working in a plastic molding case. I wasn't selling dope no more. I wasn't holding no guns, no knives. I was still going to the neighborhood, but it wasn't like I was just out there hanging out. You know what I mean? It was like hit and run, you know, like just kind of checking in. What's up, fools? What you guys up to? And my homies, though, they knew who I was. So it wasn't like, oh, fool, like you fell in love. Now you don't want to come to the neighborhood. Nah, it wasn't even like that. My homies were like, that's cool. You're out there doing good. You know what I mean? Like, keep it up, fool. Like, what are you even doing? I'll get there. They'll be like, what are you doing here, fool? You're supposed to be married and all that, right? And I was like, man, shut up, fool. Like, we can get down right now or whatever. But my homies were always cool like that. So I was still going back. But like I said, I wasn't hanging out. I wasn't selling drugs. I wasn't doing nothing. I was saving my money. We were talking about getting our first apartment. That was like our big thing. So what happens is right after my wedding. So we got married in April of 91. She got pregnant probably like in January, expecting in September, right? And right after our wedding in April, July, it was like 4th of July weekend was getting ready to come. It wasn't 4th of July, but it was like the Saturday before 4th of July. We went to my mom's house. One of my homies that was like a brother to me, he's like, hey, let's go to the store. So we go to the store, 7-Eleven right there in the neighborhood. As we're coming out of 7-Eleven, the cops pulled up on us, and they asked for our ID and stuff like that. I was like, here you go, boom. You know, there was I didn't think I had to worry about anything, right? I'm thinking like I'm working, I'm doing cool, you know, like I shouldn't be wanted for nothing.
So the least amount of dirt that you were doing is when you're
doing good.
You're doing good. And
doing good.
And you're like, I have no problem now. I'm doing good now.
Doing good.
I have a kid. I have my lady. I'm working. No problem.
Yeah. Yep. So I didn't have the kid yet, but she's pregnant though. Okay. So what happens is the dude, his partner goes and runs our names, right? He comes back and he draws down on me. He draws down on me and tells me, don't move. There's a warrant for your arrest. And once again, you know, I'm like, what? You know what I mean? And every time they identify, it was always, you know, 187. That's their main thing, you know? Like, that's all they would say. And I would like, man, you fools are tripping. And I'm thinking, like, that's not the first time they'll pick somebody up in our neighborhood just to ask questions and just try to fish for information, hoping they get something, right? Yeah. Try to scare you with something. Of
course, with the sheriffs.
Yeah. So here I am being taken. I tell my homie, like, man, go tell them what happened. You know what I mean? So I go, and I'm in the substation in City of Industry. And 2 o'clock in the morning, this was like at 7 o'clock when they arrested us, right? And then about 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm already crashed out in the holding tank. They wake me up, they're like, come on, officers want to talk to you. And it was gang unit. There's 2 of them in there. And they start talking to me like they're my friends. Hey, what's up, Jojo? You know, congratulations. I heard you got married. I heard you're going to have a baby. Heard you're doing good, man. I was like, man, miss me with all that. I'm like half awake, half asleep. I'm like, man, miss me with all that, man. If you know all that good stuff, why are you messing with me for? You know, you already know I ain't going to tell you nothing. You know, like, what do you want? They're like, hey, this ain't us. The district attorney from Pomona Courts refiled on you. I said, refiled on me? What does that even mean? I don't even know what that means. I'm like, refiled on me? They're like, yeah, this is for that shooting from 2 years ago, from 89. Oh, wow. I'm like, 89? I beat that case. And they're like, no, he didn't beat. It was a DA reject. And I'm like, a DA. And of course, you know, I don't know what all these terms mean, you know. I was like, what does that mean? They're like, yeah, he got new evidence on you or something. You know, why else would he open it? He was like, that don't got nothing to do with us.
So that case was never closed.
It was never closed. Man. So here I am going to court again, being rearranged and everything for that case. And when I found out it was for that case, so my heart kind of like, it was like relieved. I was like, oh, I already beat that case. I'll beat it again. You know what I mean? Like they didn't have no evidence in. And there was nothing. There was like total no fear. I really thought I was going to get out on this. And I tell my wife, when I go to the county jail, I had this understanding, like, I'm going to beat this case, babes. Like, don't trip. Like, Like, don't even worry about it. They're just messing with me. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I was convinced that I was going to beat this case, right? So I end up going. My attorney at that time, he tells me, he said, "Hey, listen, we could have a speeding trial if you really think we could beat this." And he was my attorney from the first time that really believed we could beat this too.
Okay, so you're like, so I got the same attorney.
I'm like, let's do it. You know what I mean? Let's have a speeding trial. And speeding trial consists of within 90 days, you have to have your jury picked. That's part of your civil rights when you request a speeding trial. You have to have your jury selected within 90 days. Like everything's like speeded up.
If not, they just stretch you out.
Yeah, they stretch it out. You know what I mean? Bunch of delays. So, but when the speeding trial comes, they have to within 90 days. You have to have your jury selection, right? So I tell I'm calculating. I'm saying, you know what? That's about the time my wife's gonna have the baby. Yeah, let's do it. You know, I'll be out on time for her to have this baby and pick up where we left off, right? So we end up having this speeding trial, the next 90 days, and during this time in LA County Jail, now this is my first time in LA County Jail. All them other years I was in juvenile hall. Now I'm in county jail, and I get there, and like any other youngster, I'm kind of like afraid as I go through the processing. They strip me down butt naked, and here I am with grown men and bums, and it smelled, that LA County Jail process. It's like a distinct smell, like no other smell, you know what I mean? And here I am naked with all these dudes going through processing and not knowing, what to expect. I'm used to juvenile hall where we still gangbang and fight and all that. Now I'm being told, you get along with your enemies and everything. And everything's race war now. You know what I'm saying? Like,
it's a whole nother level.
Yeah, it's a whole different level. So, of course, this is my first time, but being a juvenile going to adult court, though, I was around adults, so in the bus and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, I got this, I ain't tripping. And so as soon as I get to what was called 9500, which is like one of the reception dorms, which is like Thunder Dorm, everything's up there, all the dope, it's crazy up there. But luckily for me, and not to brag about my neighbors, there's nothing to be proud of, but I had probably like about a good 10 older homies that were right there. So they kind of took me under the wing, and I knew 3 of them. I knew like 3 or 4 of them personally, you know what I mean? Older homies.
Makes a big difference, right?
It made a big difference because they, and I trusted them. So they gave me some good schooling, They were like, stay away from this, stay away from that, you know what I mean? Blah, blah, blah. Right now, when you go to this place, this is what you could expect. About, kind of give me the rundown. They gave me some candy, some soups and whatnot, whatever they had in their, in their possession at that time, because they were barely going through the reception too, though. But in 9500, though, I'm telling you, that's where everything is. So they're giving me the rundown and everything, and they're like, what happened anyway? What are you busted for now? Because they knew I was a knucklehead. All of them were like, this little fool right here, you know what I mean?
Eventually you were going to make it there.
Yeah, so, but at the time, though, I'm telling them, though, that, I could probably beat this case. I'm thinking I'm going to beat this case. So all of my homies at the same time all told me, well, stay low profile then, don't be, getting involved in nothing. Just be cool, you know what I mean? Because it's easy to get caught up in there, you know what I mean? Which eventually I would, but at that point in time, I'm like kind of like still laying low, still watching my back, still, trying to learn the process. But in my head, though, I'm like, I'm trying to avoid whatever conflict I need. I don't need to pick up no new cases in here because I think I'm going to beat this case. So anyway, the 90 days comes. We pick the jury. We're going to trial. The DA presents all his witnesses. Every single one of them. He probably had maybe like 12 witnesses, including the gang unit, just to talk about my gang influence, right? So all of them all said, no, that's not him, or they couldn't remember from 2 years back. They couldn't remember. And the DA, some of them did snitch on paperwork, because they were like, wait a minute, though. Let me read back verbatim what you said. This is what you said at this. And that was like, I don't remember saying that. I don't remember saying that, right? Now that we're in front of a judge and everything's being transcribed.
Let me ask you about that. So if a dude's from the neighborhood, he says there's paperwork on the guy that he's pretty much snitched on you. Mm-hmm. But then he goes to court and he says no. What is that guy's status?
He's still a snitch.
Still a snitch, right? Because it's on the paperwork.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's not as highlighted. Like in my case, I'm not like really trying to push it. Like if you do right here, I'll forget about that. Like just do right now where it really matters. You know what I mean? But no, the DA was reading it back to him, reminding him, look, isn't this what you said? And the guy's like, I don't remember saying that. Like, no, that's not him. I'm like, okay, cool. You know what I mean? All of them went through. We went through trial through their witnesses, probably like 4 days or whatever. And then the last witness is my crime partner. He comes in with like 4 cops, 4 sheriffs with green jackets. And what's crazy is
was that the guy that left?
Was in the back seat that left 2
Okay.
years ago. I guess rumors have it, my lawyer told me, I believe he was rearrested. And when he was arrested, the red flags popped up that he never went to court. A part of his deal to testify against us was they would give him, I think they gave him a year for gang terrorism in order to testify. That was his deal. That's what my attorney told me.
Oh.
That's the deal he got. And in the process of coming to testify, though, he didn't testify. So he violated that agreement and I guess his probation or whatever. So there was a red flag on his name when he got busted again.
When he got busted again, yeah.
And what's crazy is what I heard is that he came back from Mexico, went out to the IE and started another clique from his Huntington Park neighborhood.
Oh, man.
Crazy, huh? And it's crazy though because it's a true story because what happens is when I get to the youth authority, I end up running to somebody that's from the IE from that neighborhood that verifies him being like the big homie from that neighborhood. Well, not the big one, but the officiator of that neighborhood. So, anyways, he comes in. He's mad dogging me. I'm right there in trial. He's coming in with the cops. He's mad dogging me. So, what ends up happening, he ends up getting on the stand. He starts to cry while he's testifying against me, this and that. And he says that the reason why he was testifying against me is because I put a hit on his family. After the original thing happened, homies that I'm already busted. Homies that kind of found out word about what happened, they end up shooting up his house. I guess they almost shot his mom. They didn't shoot his mom, but almost shot his mom. He took it personal and is saying that I'm the one that sent them. I never did, though. I never did. Wow. I loved his mom. You know what I mean? I loved his mom. I loved his whole family. And at that point in time, at that time still, I was still thinking that he wasn't a rat.
Right.
Yeah. In the beginning stages, I didn't even believe that. But because he was still out and we were in, homies probably put the pieces together. I wasn't really even communicating with nobody out there in that aspect.
Right.
But his justification for testifying against me at that point in time was because I put a hit on his mom. And I was like, come on, man. I didn't do that. But anyways.
It was unnecessary.
When that happened, though, Dave, my whole demeanor was like, I'm done. I sat back in the chair and said, I'm done. It's over with. And I went back on the bus that night and told my Sally. I was on the trial module at that time, 3600. I was on Able Row. Everyone there is fighting, murder cases, attempted murder cases and whatnot. Everybody right there, death penalties, everybody. And I kept on telling everybody about, like, from day to day, like, the witnesses, they came, nobody's saying it was me. And I told them that I had fought it before. So everybody was expecting me to go home based off what I was telling them. Then when I went back and I told them my crimey showed up today, they were like, the whole row was quiet. And I had my hair grown at that time thinking, like, want to be presentable, want to, look nice and everything. I was going in street clothes to my trial and everything. After that happened, shaved my head and went right back into my old gang banging mentality. At that point, I had already, like, started telling my mom, my wife, like, just forget about me. I don't want nothing to do with the outside world no more. This is my life going forward. I knew I was getting life. I knew.
That's what you were facing?
I knew.
Life?
Yeah, I knew. They had even offered me a deal of like 15 a life or something. I was like, I ain't taking no deal. You know what I mean? Like, I already beat this. I ain't taking no deal. So I already knew life was going to be the outcome.
And what was your lawyer's strategy? Did he have any strategy for you? What was he saying?
Well, my lawyer, his strategy was like, we're going to eat him up. He was a part of the crime. You know what I'm saying? We're going to dismantle his credibility. Like, I was like, it don't matter though. The jury already heard what he said. You know what I'm saying? The jury already heard what the witness had already said on paperwork. The witnesses already heard what the sheriffs were saying about my character prior to that arrest, all my other arrests, you know what I mean? Like, it's already in the jury's head that I'm a gang member, I'm a shooter, I was like, I was done. And I accepted that. I was like, I'm done. The next time I went back to my trial, the next day, I went in my blues. I was like, forget them dress clothes. I'm going back in there like whatever. Like, I'm done. Like, forget these fools. And
how old were you?
I was 18 by now.
18.
Yeah. But when I committed the crime, I was 16. Then I fought it till I was 17. Then that year is when I got married and everything. And you know what's crazy? It was like, at the end of it, though, I was like, we don't even need to present any of our witnesses now. I didn't even want to fight it no more. I really didn't. I was like, I don't have no witnesses though, because all along I'm saying that I don't know nothing about this. I didn't have no alibi to anything. You're like, who am I calling to the stand on my behalf? Right. Where am I going to say that I was at during that time? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it was kind of like, but my lawyer was so like adamant about I need to destroy his character witness. You know what I'm saying? Like we need to, and my lawyer wanted me to like throw stuff out back on him. I'm like, no, that I ain't doing nothing like that. I was like, that's crazy. Like that's not even heard of. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't even mention it, but what's bad is though when he was testifying about what happened that day, he ends up testifying about some other shootings that happened, and now I'm like, they were going to rebook me. He started saying other cases that we had did prior to that shooting. Wow. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this dude, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, even if you were mad at me about your mom's situation, how you going to still, you know, just throw out all this other stuff? You know what I mean?
So did you ever find out what he got busted for that made him
go back when he got the thing? I never found that out though, but it was funny though, because when I ended up in the youth authority, my bunkie was from out here, right? And he's the one that told me. When he told me his neighborhood, I was like, okay. And it was funny though, because I played it off. I played it off like I was his homeboy, like his best friend. I named off his mom, his brothers, everybody. I was like, man, I've been wanting to get a hold of him. He said, I'll get you his address. You know what I mean? His mom works right down the street at the CVS or whatever, or the Save-Ons. I think it was Save-Ons at the time. She works right down. I'm getting this information, but by this time, and I hope you allow me to backtrack to share, more importantly, my salvation. But
for sure,
what happened though is I was already saved at this point. I'm fast forwarding. I'm saved already. I'm sanctified. I'm loving God. And when I got this information, you know, the Lord convicted me, because I had said though that I had forgave this guy. You know what I mean? I forgive him for doing what he did, you know, for testifying against me. Like the Lord put that in my heart and I forgave him. So I grabbed that information that I had and I threw it away. I flushed it. I was like, you know what? I don't want this information, because my intentions were to pass that information to the streets, which would have caused some other damage. You know what I'm saying? So, but this guy though, his homie had no idea because of the way I was playing it off. I never told him though that, hey, you know what? He's a rat. I never smutted him up. I never, you know, try to, you know, cause more problems for him in the neighborhood or whatnot. Wow. I just left it alone. You know what I mean? Even when I grabbed that information, I had it in my hand, his home address, and he had just told me that his mom worked literally like right down the street at the CVS or whatever. And I'm like, you know what? I was like, you know what? I don't even want to have this information. I'm not even going to ask him for it again. Wow. And I flushed it and I just put it in the hands of the Lord. You know what I'm saying?
So when you get convicted, going back a little bit?
Yeah, so let's go back, because that whole incident in YA, though, I still hadn't been sentenced yet. So I didn't end up getting sentenced, Dave, until like almost over a year later. No, not a year. Yeah, let's see. No, I would say like almost 7 months later. 7 months later.
So 7 months later, you're just waiting to be sentenced?
I'm waiting to be sentenced, but because I committed my crime at 16, they send me to the youth authority to be observed to see whether or not I'm fit to be sentenced as a youth still.
Okay.
Because in the youth authority, you were allowed to stay there till you're 25, right?
Right.
But when I go to the youth authority, before I went to the youth authority, and I'm waiting for the youth authority to pick me up and take me on these observations. You know, these observations was a process of you speaking to multiple mental health doctors, taking all these tests and seeing if you're fit for YA or for prison, right?
Right.
They will make a determination off of all these evaluations.
Where do you want to go?
At the time, I'm wanting to go to prison, because everybody there, all the homies are saying, you don't want to go to YA and play them little YA games, you know, because they had already told me YA is crazy. They sexually assault guys over there. That's where all the rapists are. That's where you're going to go over there and just have to gang bang all the time, when you could just go to prison and just, you know, do your prison time, you know, and just hang out and just do your time. You know what I mean? Instead of going there and playing all the kid games. Right. So I'm like, okay, I'm thinking I want to go to prison at this point, because everybody's telling me, you know, you should just go to prison, forget all that, you know, dumb stuff, right?
Right.
But at this time, though, I'm like full force, active soldier at this point. After that day when my homeboy testified, my whole demeanor changed, where I just, like, all the rage in me, all the hate, everything was just brought up. All the hope was just taken away of me being there for my son being born and everything. And it's crazy. It's crazy though, because the day that they actually come back, which is like probably a week later after he testified, that's when my wife gave birth to my first son.
Wow.
What I was trying to get home to, but she gave birth to my son the day they came back and found me guilty of all charges.
Man,
that's crazy, huh?
Yeah.
It's crazy the way things just lined up. But anyways, during that time, after my homie testified against me, and I said I went back to that cell, I told everybody, my Sally's looking at a double murder, and he's like just bawling, he's crying for me, and he's like, damn, fool, like, dang, he's mad and stuff. And he's like, hey, fool, I got a little bit of weed. You want to get high, fool? Like, just to like bring you down. I was like, light it up, fool. Let's do it. You know what I mean? And I'm shaving my head. I'm taking a Bic to my head, shaving it down. And I'm like, yeah, like, it's on and cracking now. It's time to earn my rights to where I'm headed to. I'm figuring I'm going to spend the rest of my life in here. I'm going to earn my bones starting now,
Wow.
And sure enough, that's what I started doing, started just acting a fool, started just raising my hand for everything. Every time something came up and something needed to be handled, I was raising my hands, not because I was just crazy like that. It was just like I just had so much hurt in me at this point. And I was just like, I'll do it. I'll take care of it. I got this. It ain't no big thing. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I started assaulting people in there, started stabbing people, started doing what I was doing. And I got away with multiple ones, but eventually I ended up getting called out on it. And I ended up going to sergeant's court. I think I was sentenced to like 3 months in sergeant's court waiting for the chain, And the DA wasn't going to pick up a outside referral on me because they already knew. They by the time all that happened, they already knew that I was waiting for sentencing, but that I had already been found guilty of what I was charged
so
for.
They already knew that. You didn't have nothing to lose.
Yeah, they already knew I don't have nothing to lose. Most DA referrals ain't picking up that. You know what I mean? So, anyways, during that time though, I when I stabbed this dude, me and some other dudes, we hit this guy, and I'm in the hole right here in Medium North and Wayside, and I go in there and I eventually find this Bible tract. It was just a piece of paper all crumbled up in the edge of the bed. And I take it apart and I'm reading it, and it's talking about the love of God. And the more I read it, because I kept on crumbling up, throwing it in the corner, but I wouldn't throw it away. I wouldn't flush it or nothing. I would just throw it in the corner. And then I found myself going back about 5 times, just getting it and rereading it. And every time I read it, I was getting more and more mad at God. I was getting mad at God, Dave, like furious with God. And I started blaming God for just all the bad stuff that happened in my life, especially that 4-year-old nephew that I told you about that died. And I was blaming him for that. And eventually, through just this outrage, I'm just like banging the walls, punching the walls, and I'm like cussing out God. And I get that track again, and I'm just like, my mind's battling, like man. And I end up going to sleep that night, and I'm not ashamed to say it today, but I was crying, I was there in that cell by myself, and I'm just crying in just anger and frustration, and and I woke up with puffy eyes, swollen eyes, but I didn't have to go see nobody. They slid my food right under the door, and there was nobody was going to try to shame me. You know what I'm saying? Because nobody was there with me. But that next morning, I just felt the Holy Spirit bring me to my knees, and I asked God for forgiveness. And prior to this, I didn't have no real religious background.
That's what I was going to ask.
I had some Catholic upbringing, you know what I'm saying? And Easter, Christmas, funerals, weddings, baptisms. But I never had no real solid understanding of who God was. I knew what a rosary was. I knew what a Bible was. I seen Jesus on the cross, but I never knew the specifics. You know what I mean? I knew Jesus died on a cross. I never knew it was personally for me and my sins for eternal life or anything like that. At this point though, I did believe in God though. I did, but I've never had a deep conversation with him or never cried out to him. But I felt like the urge to just ask him to forgive me. Just forgive me, not for all the bad stuff that I did, but for that night of me just cussing him out. And because I don't think I've ever had a moment where I just cussed out God and just blamed him for everything, you know? I never really had like a reason to blame God for anything. But at this moment, after that Bible track, though, that's what like brought conviction, you know, reading about the love of God off that Bible track. Wow. Yeah. So yeah, that Bible track, man, it just like really penetrated my heart. And at this point in time, I still don't know nothing about the sinner's prayer. I don't know about being born again. I don't know nothing about, you know, surrendering my life to God or nothing. But I fell on my knees and I asked God to like, God, if you are real, just change this heart of mine. You know what I mean? Because it had really gotten to a point where I didn't care no more about nobody or anything, you know? And so long story short, I end up getting released from the hole and they put me back on the main line. As soon as I get to the main line, homies are already identifying my next victim. They're like, yeah, this fool over here, blah, blah, blah. They're telling me who he is. I'm looking. I haven't even unrolled my mattress yet. My mattress is still like in my arm and I just barely lay it down, you know. And homies are bringing me, you know, kind of gifts, thanking me for taking care of what I took care of and whatever. Like, here, you know, this for you, but this is your next victim. I'm like, man, here we go again. And I said, well, I'm going to jump in the shower right now. And in Medium North, they have these showers that go up to like your chest and then it's glass, right? And the shower is there. So you could see out. You could see the whole dorm right there. So I'm right there showering and I'm looking over everybody, right? And all of a sudden I see the cops come in and they take out that guy. They take out that guy that I'm supposed to hit. And I was like, is this my first answered prayer? Is this like, I've been like, man, Lord, like, thank you. You know what I mean? I'm like starting to trip now. Like, God, are you really moving on my behalf? You know, because I'm not, you know, I'm feeling after that prayer, like, I don't want to hurt people no more. I don't. Like, something within me was feeling like, I don't want to hurt nobody.
That was like a miraculous encounter.
It was.
Like, totally.
It was.
You had no prior relationship or exposure.
Yeah.
Just the average, and God, you find a track and you read it and you battle, you know, inside of
back and forth.
Yeah. You know, and finally you give in, you hit your knee. I mean, it was like a Saul, road to Damascus encounter right there.
Yeah, you know who I always related to? I'm sure you've seen the Duke of Earl. You know, everybody's seen the Duke of Earl, right? You remember after they killed Wino when Duke's in his room and he's battling, he's hearing his grandma and he's hearing that pastor. Can you handle God's love? You know what
Pastor
I mean?
Ed.
Yeah, Pastor Ed Morales, right? So I had a moment like that where I started remembering. So let me tell you, though, because when I said I didn't have no Christian exposure, Victory Outreach, Calvary Chapel, they used to always hit my neighborhood.
Right. Victory Outreach was
everywhere. And they were in Puente. Yeah, they were. And they were always out there witnessing the way they do, right? So, but I've never... I have allowed them to, like, pray over me, but I never allowed them to, like, literally, like, just have a Bible study with me or nothing. You know what I'm saying? But I used to hear them preaching, and I remember, like, when I was going through that moment, I was remembering like them preaching to me and telling me, you know, God loves me. And it was kind of like, you know, going hand in hand with what the Bible track was saying. You know what I'm saying?
The seeds were planted.
Yeah, the seeds were planted.
You didn't even know.
I didn't even know, but I reflect back to that moment. Like I told you, I was battling in my head with all this stuff and I'm blaming God for all this stuff. You know what I mean? But at the same time, I'm getting these visions of people telling me about God, you know what I mean? And that's, I believe, what led me to falling on my knees and asking God to forgive me, because it was kind of like I was remembering, like, God's been calling me.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Street Gospel Podcast. Before we get started, I wanted to let you know that this podcast is brought to you by Elevate Ministries. Elevate Ministries is an authentic, passionate, and innovative church in the heart of Orange County, California. They strive to make their services welcoming and encouraging by intentionally engaging you in all senses to stimulate a spiritual hunger. If you're looking for a great church that's on a mission to change the world one person at a time, I encourage you to check them out at www.elevateministries.com and on Instagram at Elevate Ministries.
He's been calling me.
Right. We're chopping away.
Yeah. So going back to the incident in Medium North and that guy being taken out. So I'm like, oh God, you heard my prayers, you know what I'm saying? So I get out of the shower, I go set my stuff down finally, and I'm getting comfortable. And I'm in this section where there's mainly all blacks, and the homies come and tell me, hey, don't trip. We're going to get you out of here tomorrow. When the other cop comes tomorrow, we're going to have a movie over here to our side. And he said, the only thing is, you're going to be bunked up with the Christian, but he's cool. And I was like God's already starting to unfold things, right? So they tell me that, and I said, a Christian? What? Like, what? He said, yeah, he's cool, though. He's a homie, though. You know what I mean? He's a homie, and he's a Christian. Like, what? Like, what does that look like? I don't understand what that is. So when I finally meet the guy, he's a big dude. He's from YA, he's a YA baby. He's swole, he's a big dude. And he's very, like, his smile. His name's Gabriel. My wife refers to him as the angel Gabriel because that's what he seemed like at that moment as I explained this story to you. So anyways, I meet this bunkie. He's like, oh, what's up? How you doing? Whatever. He never witnesses to me. I'm there for a couple of days with him, and he goes to his Bible studies. I see him. They're over there in a circle worshiping God, singing Amazing Grace and whatnot. I see him, but let him do his thing. The homie said he's cool. He's cool. You know what I'm saying? And I'm over there still, like, I'm playing blackjack. I'm gambling in there, still doing my thing. And then one day I finally call home because remember I told you I had told my mom and my wife I don't want nothing to do with them. They would come to see me. I would deny my visits and stuff. Like I was literally like trying to block out the outside world. You know what I'm saying? But after that whole thing with God, I decided to call home, and just see how they were doing, And I call home, and right away my wife tells me that they had just killed one of my good friends. And I was like, without even really like talking to her, I start banging the phone. Boom, boom. The homies come and get me like, hey, fool, what's going on? Like, calm down. I'm like, man, let me go, fool. And I hang up the phone, and I go to my bed, and I'm there. And I'm just like plotting in my head. Like she told me who killed him and stuff. So there's somebody there, from that neighborhood. And the crazy thing is it was like my own neighborhood, but certain clique. And I had homies there that were from that clique, And that clique was kind of like on my enemy side anyway. So I was like, there's always a way of making things personal in the county, right? Sure. There's different ways. So I'm like, I might have to turn this into like a personal event, right? But I'm on my bed and I'm hot. And my bunkie, Gabriel, he comes up to me and he hasn't preached to me at all. He just says, good morning, whatever. He comes to my bed and he starts telling me, he said, the only one that could he's pointing his finger at me. He's like, the only one that could get that rage out of your life is the Lord Jesus Christ. And I'm like, what, fool? Like, I jump off my bed and I'm like, man, this dude would have literally wiped me up. I mean, let me remind you, at this time, I'm weighing probably like 100 pounds soaked and wet with rocks in my pocket. I'm a little guy. I've always been pretty little. I mean, I don't know when I ended up stretching, but at this point, I was still kind of light in the butt.
You didn't have your man body yet.
Yeah, I was still like kind of young and kind of, you know what I'm saying? I hadn't hit no weights or nothing, I'm coming through and I'm talking crazy to him, but I'm thinking I still have all my homies, but he's a Christian. Of course my homie's going to back me up over this Christian. Like, they ain't going to let me get smashed by him. But like I said, he had been in YA, he had big arms, big old chest. He had a Bible that looked like this big under his arm, you know what I mean? Because he was so big. And I jump off my bed and I'm getting all crazy with him. Like, you don't even know me, fool. What do you mean? Blah, blah, blah. And he said, yeah. And I'm telling him, you don't even know me. And he said, I don't know you, but I know that spirit that's in you. I know that spirit. And he said, the only one that's going to deliver you is Jesus Christ. And I'm like, ugh. So we ended up talking and debating for like hours, bro. We're like debating and, and I don't know what time it was, but I know it was still light outside because there's like little cracks so you could see outside. And then it got dark and it was bedtime already and we were still going at it. You know what I mean? He said, let me end with this. He said, if you die tonight, do you know where you will spend eternity? I said, yeah, I'll go to heaven. I believe in God. He said, wrong answer. He said, even the demons believe and tremble. And I was like, what? He shows me in the Bible where it says that. He said, you believe the Bible? And I was like, yeah. I believe the Bible. I didn't even know the Bible, but I'm saying I believe the Bible, right? And he said, yeah. And then he started telling me, he said, unless you're born again. So I'm like, man, you keep on hitting me with all these riddles, man. What does that mean, be born again? And he said, yeah, you need to be born of the Spirit of God. You need to confess that Jesus Christ is Lord and Savior. You need to repent from your sins. And I'm like, all of this is just like, you might as well talk to me in Chinese, because I don't know nothing you're saying. And he starts explaining it to me. He said, do you believe in Jesus Christ? Do you believe that he died on the cross for your sins and he was buried and he rose again and he's seated at the right hand? I said, I believe that. Then he said, then confess it with your mouth and believe it and you will be saved. You know what I mean? And I was like, what? I said, it's that simple. He said, do you believe? I said, I do believe. He said, then confess Jesus as Lord. Wow. So I said the sinner's prayer with him, not really. And he just grabbed me. He's all happy, had a big old smile, and he's big, right? And he's hugging me. And he starts just praying over me and he's prophesying over me. And I end up going to bed that night, Dave, like feeling free. And I felt liberated. But I didn't know what was happening because I didn't know nothing about a Christian rebirth. You know, as far as I knew, I was still Catholic. That's what, I always said I was Catholic. I figured I'm Mexican. Mexicans are Catholic. You know what I mean? So that night was the first night in a long time that I had went to sleep with no shoes on because it was a dorm setting. So we used to sleep with our shoes on because sometimes we would get off in the middle of the morning, right? So I took my shoes off. I was probably like the last one to go to sleep and the first one to wake up. And I'm looking at everybody in their beds and I'm like talking to God, like subconsciously, like, man, what happened? Like, what's going on? Like, what happened last night? But I felt like so pure and I'm looking at people and it was as if God opened my eyes and I seen people and I started to feel like a certain way where I love people instead of like feeling that hate that I had been feeling and feeling that anger. It was like I felt love like never before.
So was the rage gone?
The rage was gone. Wow. Like instantly it was gone. And it was like, it was so crazy that I told one of my older homeboys that was there with me that I respected. I mean, I respected him with everything. He had been in prison for multiple years. I knew him from the neighborhood and everything. And I took him my ice pick and I took it to him. And I told him, hey, fool, you need to hold on to this because I don't know what's going on with me, man. I said, my bunkie Gabriel, the Christian, I said, he prayed for me last night. I asked Jesus into my heart. My homie grabs me and hugs me. And he said, man, congratulations, bro. Like, shh. And he pulls out his little Bible and he starts like preaching to me a little bit like, man, I wish I had the courage to make that stand. I know that's what he said, man, I'm a big hypocrite. He's like telling me, like he's ministering to me, but I'm not even like really realizing it. But he's telling me I'm like the biggest hypocrite because I know that that's the right way, but I can't do it. Wow. I can't do it, man. He said, but you can do it. And I'm like, if you can't do it, how am I going to do it? You know what I mean? Like you're an OG, you know, I'm still a young kid in here, barely starting my time. What does that even mean, you know? And from that day forward, man, God just starts moving in my life miraculously. Just like he starts just opening. And for the next 2 weeks, Gabriel's like mouth feeding me the word of God. I mean, we're waking up, we're praying on our knees. He's giving me, a Bible study in the morning, the afternoon, at night. He's feeding me the word of God.
He's your Ananias.
And guess what, though? He leaves. They drop it. He was there on a parole hold. And this is why my wife, especially my wife, and when I thought about it, I was like, he was like an angel because he had given his life to the Lord. Because I used to ask him, how are you a Christian and an inmate at the same time? Did you get saved the way I did right now or something, Because I didn't understand. How can you be a Christian out there and still violate the laws? You know what I mean? But his situation was he had got saved out there after his YA time, was going to church, was active in the church, and then he ends up working construction, and he had a knife cutter, a box cutter, and they violated him. He was from Inglewood, and Inglewood PD pulled him over because they recognized him. He has a tool belt, he has a hammer, screwdriver, he has like tools on him, and because of that box cutter, they violated him. So he was there on a violation hold, and he was like, you know what? God just has me on a mission. You must have been my mission. And I said, that must have been. Because he left, and when he left, I felt so scared. I felt like I was a little baby sheep among wolves, and they were going to eat me up. They were just waiting for Gabriel to leave to eat me up. But you know what? It was then, like I said, for 2 weeks, Gabriel was just feeding me the word. And it was all the gospel, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and John. He told me, he said, this is all we're going to do. We're not going to read nothing else. This is it. We're just going to read the gospels. You need to learn who Jesus Christ is. So we were in the gospels. That's all I knew was the gospels. And when he left, I was so scared, but I said, I'm just going to continue doing the same program. Wake up, pray on my knees by myself, read my word in the morning, pray over my food like he told me, stay away from that lust box, the TV like he told me, stay away from the homies, when they're talking their politics stuff. So I said, I'm just going to keep on going. And it was at that time when I feel the Holy Spirit started teaching me. Where Gabriel left off, that's where the Holy Spirit picked up and just started showing me the word, and signs and wonders started coming. And I didn't have a testimony like I do today, but the little bit of testimony was, you know what? I cried out to God in that cell. I told God to change my heart. That was a couple months ago. Today, I feel love in my heart, and people didn't understand that. I didn't have no long-winded testimony. I only had the little bit that I shared about the cell and about what Gabriel did for me 2 weeks earlier.
Still,
that was my
powerful,
testimony. And with that though, God was just moving, and God was giving me such favor, like, and I knew it was God, and I knew it was His mercy on me, and I knew that God was just positioning me for something that I didn't even know what to expect, to tell you the truth. But God just started moving and moving and moving, and I became a peacemaker in there. And then by all of that time, though, I'm still waiting to go to YA. I'm still waiting to catch the chain. And then after I made that commitment to the Lord, I end up catching the bus and I go to YA. And it was funny, too, because when I was waiting for the chain, the homies that were there, they were telling me, hey, Jojo, man, with all due respect, like, homies ain't going to care that you're Christian. You know, your enemies, they're a part of the rules over there is 24 hours. They got to get at you. They're going to get at you, like Christian or not Christian. And they were like, there's nothing you could do about it.
Wow.
And I'm like, well, the Lord's going with me, you know, whatever happens, happens, you know what I mean? But there's no turning back on me. And because I was very active and like I said, I was raising my hand and I like was volunteering to be a soldier, you know, for that specific army, you know, prior to me, you know, falling on my knees and asking God and everything, I went to them out of respect and I told them, I said, you know what, man, I don't know what's going on with me, but you know, I'm going to chapel and stuff now. And, you know, I think I gave my life to God, you know what I mean? And they were like, what? I didn't know how to explain it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I didn't know how to, because there was no outline, you know, telling me about what I just did. So I'm telling these homies that had some authority that kind of, you know, ran things. I'm telling them this, and they were like, well, more power to you, homie. You know what I'm saying? Just don't play games with it. If that's where you're going to go, you need to know that you're on your own, though.
You got to be sold out.
And they're telling me, like, you're on your own going forward. You know, like, you're not under our umbrella no more. You don't have our protection. You don't, like, you're on your own. And I kind of, like, understood that. But even then, in that conversation, I felt the boldness of the Lord to, like, remind me that you're not alone. I'm here with you.
Wow.
And I was able to walk away from that meeting, like, kind of with their blessings. And that's kind of where the favor was, Dave. I mean, the favor was with them guys that had the authorization to say, you know what, you need to regulate the homie for, you know, going to church or doing whatever he's doing or keep an eye on him. I don't know what was said behind the scenes, you know, like keep an eye on him, you know what I mean? What, you know, to see who he's talking to, see what's going on, you know, like they don't know what's happening. I don't even know what's happening. You know what I'm saying? So it kind of felt like people were watching me, and there was a lot of homies that knew me that they were like, hey, fool, like, are you sleeping on somebody? Like, you know, are you playing this part to get close to somebody? You know, because there were people that were hiding behind the Bible, obviously, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I mean, there was times when I was even told, like, to go to the church to go hit somebody. You know what I mean? So I don't know what to expect moving forward other than that conversation that I'm on my own now. And here I am about to go to YA. How am I going to explain this to anybody? You know what I'm saying? And as I go to YA, and one of the things about me, though, going forward is that everywhere I went, I always acknowledged who I was, where I was from, what I was busted for. Like, you know, there's different places where you got to present your paperwork and whatnot. And there was nothing for me to hide. There was no shame in where I came from, who I was.
Right.
You know, I hadn't did anything deserving of any other reputation other than what I had earned, you know. So everywhere I went, I told them that. And then when church time came, I went to church. They were like, you go to church? I was like, yeah, I'm a Christian. And they were like, oh, okay. You know what I mean? But that's the way I presented myself. I never went in like waving a flag like, hey, I'm a Christian. Like, you know, I don't politic. I'm not going to jump in your riots. I never went out like trying to be somebody else. I went like just like God, you know, direct my steps. And I believe that was the wisdom that God gave me because of all that, God gave me a lot of favor, though, with people that had a lot of say-so.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, which you need, right?
So when I go to YA, though, listen to this story, though. When I go to YA, though, and people are hearing this, they're kind of like, I'm kind of like shunned a little bit. But I have homies that know me That's one thing about Puente. No matter where we go, there's going to be homies from Puente. And I don't mean to brag about that. Like I said earlier, it's not something that we're going to get an award for. But everywhere I went, there was always homies. And them homies knew me. They knew who I was prior to that confession of faith, right? And like I said, I was never hiding behind anybody. And I even told my enemies multiple times, like, hey, I understand you need to do what you got to do. You know what I mean? And I was a boxer. I mean, I know how to fight. Street fight, box, I could do it. It wasn't like I was afraid to get down with somebody. So I was like, if you really need to get it off your chest, you know, like, cool. You know what I mean? I'll even hug you afterwards and pray with you. You know?
Lay hands
like,
on you?
it's not going to be like an angry fight where I'm going to want get back.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I never had to fight nobody in YA.
Wow.
That was a favor of God. And like homies would invite me over to spreads and stuff. And I'd be like, you know, out of respect, you know what I mean? Because if somebody invites you, you don't want to be like, nah, I'm better than you. Or because I'm Christian, I don't want to eat with you or whatever. So I would go spread with them. You know what I mean? And they knew I was Christian. And I presented myself that way, you know? And from YA, I end up going back and I end up getting found pseudo. I end up going to YA for 6 months. Like I said, I didn't get sentenced until like 7 months later. So I go to YA for like 6 months. I went for 90 days. They took me back to LA County Jail. They never did the psych evaluation, so they sent me back. Right, so I go back for another 90 days, and then I finally go back and I'm sentenced. And when I was sentenced to 45 years to life with the 15-year gang enhancement for my case, I was like, this is the Lord's will. You know what I'm saying? Like, I accept it. Like, I wasn't mad. I wasn't like, and my family was crying and everything, but I was just like, you know, it is what it is.
Right.
You know, I was already like 8 months saved now, 7 months saved or whatever. And during that time, God was just using me throughout YA, throughout the county. And then by then I go to YA. So the story I was telling you about, when I get to YTS, let me say it like this. There's a Protestant church list and a Catholic list. And by this time, I'm already knowing from the reception center YA that I'm Protestant. If I don't go to Catholic, I go to Protestant service. So when I get there, I sign up on the Protestant service thing. And all the homies like, hey, homie, you're signing up on the wrong side. You need to go to the Catholic church, the brown church. They're like, either you go black church or brown church. There's no other. You just go with them. And I told them, but I'm a Christian, though. I'm actually a Protestant. They're like, no, you're brown. You're going to the brown church. And I was like, nah, man, I'm going to the Protestant church. And the homie comes and tells me, he was from my area, right? He said, hey, homie, listen, if you sign up on that church, you're going to have every homie at your door.
Oof.
Everyone's going to line up at your door. And I'm like, I know what he's saying, you know what I mean? But I'm telling him, like, I'm not Catholic, though. I'm a Christian. I'm a real Christian.
Yeah.
So I end up going. And even when I'm going, the blacks are like, hey, I say, like, you in the wrong line. Like, what are you doing? Like, are you a blood? Are you a Crip? Like, what kind of Mexican are you? You know what I mean? I said, I'm a Christian Mexican. And they were like, but are you a Southsider? I said, I was a Southsider. You know what I mean? I'm from LA County, you know, and whatnot. And they were like, you in the wrong, like, you know, they're gonna hurt you for coming to our church, right? And then there was this other black brother that was right there. He was like, you a Christian? I was like, yeah, I'm a Christian. He was like, nice to meet you. You know what I mean? And we started talking and stuff. He said, yeah, you might have some problems when you get back and stuff. I was like, well, we'll see what happens. So I go, I'm worshiping God, loving God. And I come back. I go in my cell. My bunkie's there, and he's a Southsider. And he tells me, he said, hey, if anybody runs in, like, I got your back. You know what I mean? And I'm like, yeah, right. I already know this. You know what I mean? You're probably, right now when they close the door, you're the main one that's going to hit me. You probably have something already, you know? Wow. But they locked the door. So I was like, okay, I'm safe for tonight, you know? And I'm looking at my bunkie, and he's cool. And he's like, here, you want some spread? And I was like, yeah, all right. So we're eating. And the next day when I go to chow, I'm looking around, and people are looking at me. And I'm like, are they going to rush me out here? They're going to wait for me to get back to my cell? And, you know, in there in YA, there's such a thing that's called leva, you know what I mean? And if they drop you leva, like, you're going to catch the blues, like, every day, you know, until you leave or until you try to hang yourself, you know? Like, when you get on that status, it's all bad, you know? It's all bad. Like, literally, it's all bad. When you fall leva on YA, that's when people just walk behind you and slap you and take your stuff. And you're just, like, literally, I mean, the word leva is literally, like, a lame status. Like, you're no good, you know? Right. And I was like, man, are these fools going to try to rush me and drop me, you know, leva or what? You know, like, I don't know what to expect. You know what I'm saying? But I'm, like, still praying, like, Lord, I'm not hiding from anybody. I'm just, loving God. So I go to chow, I come back and stuff. And the homie that told me not to sign up, he says, hey, you know my homeboy Bad Boy? And I was like, yeah, I know Bad Boy. Me and him, we went through juvenile hall like years ago. It's my boy. He said, he got a kite for you. He wants to say what's up. And I'm reading the kite. He's like, hey, fool, it's good to see you, man. I heard about you giving your life to the Lord and whatever. And I guess he told them, like, Bad Boy was pretty, popular. I mean, he was institutionalized since he was young, too. So he kind of, like, spoke up for me or whatnot, like, hey, he's a good homie. You know what I'm saying? So they were like, but he's Christian, but he's a good homie, though, So from there forward, people were kind of, like, cool with me. And let me tell you how I end up evangelizing to get other brown people in the black church. So I would go to Wednesday night, and guess who's coming in Wednesday night? Victory Outreach. We have homies in there talking about being ex-drug addicts. We have homegirls in there talking about being prostitutes and being drug addicts and whatnot. So I go back to the unit, and I tell the homies, I was like, oh, you guys should have been there tonight. There was these fine homegirls there. And, man, as a matter of fact, your homeboy was there. Your homeboy, and I said the name. He was like, he was there. I was like, what was he doing there? I was like, Victory Outreach was here. The Mexican church was here at the black church on a Wednesday. They're like, what? I was like, yeah, they come on Wednesdays. So 2 of them started going. More of them started going Wednesday. They started inviting more people. They started getting saved. For long, shoot, we had all kinds of homies in there now.
Wow.
Now God started to move and revival started to take place. And, man, it was all glory to God, though. All glory to God. And, I would never take credit for, but.
So how do you get out, bro? Obviously, you're here.
I'm here by the grace of God, bro. So what happens is I end up, staying in YA till I was about 20. I think it was 24 when they killed a counselor there. And they ended up shipping all of us to prison. I ended up going to prison. I ended up, going through Donovan. I ended up going through Solano. Ended up going through San Quentin. I went through different prisons. I ended up in Corcoran prison. The new side, actually. New side of Corcoran. And they had a program there called the Walden House. It's a recovery program. And it was like one of the first ones. I think the first one was in Donovan. It's called Therapeutic Community. What I go out and do motivational speaking on now, right? And what it is it's like the prison yard is like almost 100%, or what we'll say like 99.9% recovery. I mean, there's still guards there's still that, but you're required to go to like recovery groups and process groups and encounter groups and all these different things. And they started this program where they were taking lifers to, they were putting them through college and certifying them to be counselors. And they were only taking a certain number of lifers. You had to go through this real big, hideous interview with the warden, with all kinds of different people before you were accepted to be a part of that program. So I ended up becoming a part of that program, and I was there for almost 2 years, almost 3 years. I was there in that program as a demonstrator. It's called, a demonstrator is like a live-in counselor. Of course, like there would be counselors there during the day, and then they would leave, and then we would take over and run groups and whatnot. So anyways, I'm there on this yard in 2002. I went before the Board of Prison Terms for like, I believe it was like the second time or third time. And I went in there so bitter. I was like, you know what? At this time, and let me tell you, though, that young wife that I married, she's by my side all the way through. Mad props for my wife, man.
Yeah.
Mad props. She's bringing my son for me to have a relationship. I mean, she's driving up north. She's driving, in snow and rain and heat and everything. My wife always had my back all the way through, man, and allowed me to grow up with my son, right? So, anyways, at this point in time, though, my wife is telling me I'm done. It's not that I want to go find someone else. She was being harassed by officers, going through visits. And she was like, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of waking up early. And I'm just done. She said, I'm done with this. I'm sorry. I try to hang in there, all these years. It's already been 12 years. Wow. And I'm done. You know what I'm saying? Like, your son is done. He's tired of waking up early, at 3 a.m. to be there, first in line and stuff. And I get it. I'm like, that's cool. Like, I'm a little hurt, but I get it, though. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I can't be so selfish to keep dragging her through doing time with me, you know? So I go to board, though, and I'm kind of bitter. And I tell the commissioners, I'm done. Like, I tell the commissioners, like, you know what? Just give me my denial and let me get back to the yard. Yeah. You know, usually they give me a 3-year denial, you know, just stamp it and go back, you know, and I go back, you know, no big deal.
Like Shawshank.
Yeah,
Shawshank Redemption.
that's what they do. They do stamp it.
When Red goes in there and he's like, I've been here too long. Like, they just don't. And then they free him when he says that.
Yeah. So anyway, so at that time they didn't free me, though. But I was expecting a 3-year denial, and they gave me a 1-year denial this time. They were like, you know what? We want to see you again next year. So I was like, all right, whatever. During that 1-year process, though, my wife still stood by me and everything. And she was like still telling me, though, like, this is getting old. Hopefully this year, you know, you'll be able to come home and stuff. So I tell her, yeah, well, we'll see what happens, you know. And at this time, though, I mean, I don't want to sound cocky about it or whatnot, but I'm already content with my ministry in there. I'm already like, I'm not even tripping off going home. During them years, that's when Pete Wilson and Gray Davis had, you know, politicalized the term, like, you know, the only way you're going home is in a box. I mean, that was all over their, you know, their agendas. You know what I mean? Like, they always said that. Like, if you're a lifer, you're not going home. Wow. Only way you're going home is in a box. So I believe that. You know what I'm saying? And what happens is, when I go to this next hearing, God had been speaking to me, and God told me, go in there humble and see what I do. And when I'm in the holding tank and I'm waiting to be taken in, you know, to the hearing, it's like kind of like a court hearing. It's the governor's commissioners. And then there's like the district attorney will call in, and it's like a little courtroom, right? So I go in there, and before I go in, though, I'm waiting to go in. My lawyer comes and tells me, I think we should postpone it for a year. I don't like the commissioner that's here right now. This commissioner, you know, they're not fair. They're very biased towards gang-related, you know, crimes and stuff. Like, I think we should wait another year, and hopefully next year we'll get somebody different. I said, no, we need to go before him. God already said we need to go before these people here today. I said, we need to go. And she said, listen, you're going against my advice. You know what I mean? Like, whatever the outcome is, it's going to be on you. I said, I know. Let's go. And so we go in there. And you remember the year before I told you I went in there all cocky and we're like, man, just give me my denial. Let me get back to the yard. This time I go in there humble. And I even apologized to them. I said, you know, I apologize for my actions last year. You know, I came in with some attitude that you guys, I know you guys are just doing your job, you know. I apologize for that. And they were like, all right. And with that being said, you know, we don't need to read over all the facts because we do this every year. The facts are already in the record. And what they mean by that is anything that's ever been written about me prior to my crime, everything from a juvenile, everything that they've ever had on me is presented in these hearings. And every time I went, they've always made me the bad guy, you know, always like just shot me down. This time, though, it's totally different. Wow. This time, they're like, you know what? I just want to commend you on all your recent certificates, your progress reports, your board report is very positive on your side. Even your psychologist is identifying you as an Eagle Scout type of guy. I don't even know what an Eagle Scout is. You know, I end up finding out it's like the highest rank in the Boy Scouts. And I'm like, okay, whatever, you know. And they're telling me all this. And then the district attorney from LA, representing LA County, he starts telling me, you know, we believe that you've done enough time, that you've paid the price, you know, and you will benefit, the community will benefit with your presence and stuff. And I'm looking, I'm like, what the heck is going on here? This is all crazy. And what happens is they end up, what they do is they deliberate too. It's just like court, like a little mini trial, right? So they end up saying, okay, you know, we're going to have you step out while we go over your paperwork and stuff, and we'll call you back in, which is normal. They normally take you out, bring you back in like within 10 minutes, bring you back and say, okay, we'll see you again in another 3 years. Boom, you know, and tell you the reasons being. This time, though, I'm waiting, and it's like almost 2 hours, and it's already evening, and it's already dinner's past, and the CO's giving me lunches like, here, you're going to miss dinner, you know, here's your dinner, you know. And I'm eating these sack lunches and stuff. And I'm like, did they leave? Did they go out to lunch or something? Did they go out to dinner? He said, no, they're in there. And I'm like, this long? Like, what is taking so long? He said, they're in there. And I was like, okay. So after about 2 hours, they take me back in and they said, just continue standing. And I'm like, okay. And they said, yeah, on behalf of the state of California and blah, 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 we find you suitable for parole at this time. And they start reading off my conditions. Okay, you must check into your parole office within 24 hours of your release. You can't have no possession of any sort of weapons. You can't wear any gang attire. One of my special conditions, I couldn't go back to my city. It was like I had a curfew. I had all these different things. And I'm telling my attorney, like, what does this mean? Am I going home? Or like, what does this mean? And she's like, well, wait a minute. She's writing down stuff. She's writing down notes and everything. And then they stopped and they were like, I just want to tell you, good luck, and I'm like looking at them. I'm like, what? And they stamp it just like the thing, parole granted. And I could see it from a distance, them stamping it. And they give me like the pink copy, and they were like, here's your copy. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like just tripped out. I go back.
How many years?
By this time, it's almost 13 years.
Wow.
And I go back, and I tell everybody, I'm showing everybody the paperwork, and they're like, what? Like you're going home? And I was like, I don't know what's happening. So come to find out, because of my case, any lifer case, the governor has to be the ultimate one to sign off on it, right? So for 180 days, which is like the time frame that the governor has to sign it off, right? I'm waiting to find out what's happening every day. Everybody's asking me. Every time there's legal mail, I'm listening, and nothing until the last day I get this letter. And in that letter, it says that my parole condition has been revoked because of the heinous crime and blah, 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 and this and that. And I'm like, I figured, like I shouldn't, shouldn't have thought, anything different. Nobody's going home. At this time, no lifers are going home. So I'm on my way to college at that time, because I'm still going to college to be a counselor, right? I show my professor, and I show her the letter, and she just starts just like, dang. She said, come with me in the office real quick. She calls San Francisco, which is the main office. I'm in New Corcoran. She called San Francisco, which the Walden House operates out of. That's like the hub, right? She calls one of the big dogs up there and tells them what happened. They were all on standby, right? So she tells them what happened. And she says, you know what, Jojo, we're going to fight the governor. We're going to fight the governor for you. And I was like, what? I'm like, who? Like, who am I for them to want to fight the governor? Right away, though, they started getting their own their own psychologists to come and do our own evaluations and everything. And they just started like moving some stuff, right? So what ends up happening is I have the right to appeal that decision. And it goes to an embankment hearing, which is all the commissioners. Because in the hearing, there's one commissioner. Sometimes there's two commissioners. But on the whole panel, there's 7 commissioners in Sacramento. So I get a hearing before them, but I'm not allowed to go. This is in August. This is August 14th. My hearing when I got paroled was March 3rd, 2003. So fast forward to August 13th. I have this hearing in Sacramento where I'm not allowed to go, but I could have character witnesses go. So my wife goes, my son goes, Pastor Raymond goes.
Wow.
I had people from the chaplain from New Corcoran goes. The directors from the program, the Walden House program, they go. So there's a good number of witnesses that are going to speak on my behalf. So while they're all up there, I'm on the yard playing basketball and stuff, and the staff are coming out like, hey, your son just testified. Your wife just, took the mic. They're right here. They close for lunch right now. And then they pick back up now. And then Vic Good talked right now. And they're telling me all these different processes, right? So what ends up happening is at the end of it, they were like, yeah, they're done. They stopped. They can't announce what the finding is because I'm a lifer. They have to like notify the public of it first. Their findings. How they do that, I don't know. So anyways, that night on August 13th, it's already like 9:00 at nighttime. The yard is already closed. They say my name over the intercom. They're like, Godinez, report to the program office. And I'm like, what? To the program office right now? And the program office, that's where all the cops hang out. Like program office, like nobody likes to go to the program office because that's like where people go snitch. That's where people go and, lock it up and do whatever they do, And I'm like, man, they setting me up. What do they want me for? You know what I mean? So they're like, hurry up, let's go. And I'm like, dang. So everybody's looking at me like, what the heck? What are you going to program office for? I was like, I don't know. I go over there. My counselor, who leaves every day, like at 4:00 or whatever, he's there. He's all sweaty. It's August. It's like 115 outside. He's sweating, and he's a white dude. He's all red, and he's like, "You need to sign these papers." And I was like, "What? What are these? What papers?" He said, "These are your parole plans." And normally they get your parole plans ready like months in advance before you go home. He's telling me, "You're going to be leaving first thing in the morning." I'm like, "What?" I like, "Are you serious?" He said, "What's the address? Where are you paroling to? Where are you going?" And I'm telling him, "I'm going to downtown LA. I'm going to the Walden House." They're like, "Okay, so that's where's the parole office at?" He's like looking. He's like, "Okay, you got to report to the South Central office." And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'll get you the address." You know what I mean? So he's nervous, right? Wow. He's nervous, like he doesn't know what to do. And so they're having me sign these. He asked me questions. What's my emergency contact? They're asking me all these different things and stuff. They give me a copy of it. And then as I'm getting my paperwork, the warden calls. The warden calls the program office, and he congratulates me. They put me on the phone, and he congratulates me. He said, "There's a lot of red tape. You're the first lifer. We're still trying to figure it out, but we'll get you out tomorrow. All right? Wow. And be sure to come back to visit us." I'm like, "Yeah, right. I ain't coming back," you know? So I end up that morning. I go back first of all, and everybody's looking. Everybody's already in their cells and stuff. And I tell everybody, I was like, "Man, they're saying I'm going home in the morning, right?" And everybody starts banging on the doors and stuff. And it was I felt the love, man. And I was like, I was just feeling a certain way. And I go back in my cell, and I'm telling my Sallies, I'm like, "Hey, they're saying I'm going home in the morning, man. They had me do my parole plans." So we're up and we're talking, and I'm getting my stuff together. I got all my legal paperwork and my pictures, and that's it. Everything else, I gave away my radio. I gave away everything. I was like, "Man, if I don't go, I might have to collect everything back." But I was like, "Here you go," you know. And that morning, they called all the early pre-releases. They call them like at 6 a.m. to pack their stuff and to go to R&R, you know. And they don't call my name, and my bunkie's yelling, "Hey, what about Godinez?" They're like, "He's not on the list." And I'm like, We'll see what happens. You know what I mean? And because I was a part of that recovery program, they have something that's called like a going away ceremony, where whenever you're paroling, they like sit you in the hot seat, and they allow people to talk to you and, you know, congratulate you and whatnot. So right after breakfast, they set it up. They're like, set it up for a going away. Like, he's going home. By faith, we're going to give him a going away ceremony right now. So they sit me in the hot seat, and people are coming up, and other people are coming from other buildings to come in. And over the intercom, they're like, "Godinez, pack your stuff. You're going to R&R." And I was like, everybody starts clapping and stuff. And I was like, dang. And it was crazy. It was like a movie, man. And I could just picture it right now, you know, from my building. I was in building 3, and to go to that side gate to go to R&R, it's probably like a 2-minute walk, you know what I mean? But it ended up taking like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, because everybody on the yard, you know, blacks, whites, you know, homies, you know, just everybody was right there just congratulating me and telling me, like, if anybody deserves to go home, ooh, it's you. Like, you know, go out there and make us all proud, you know, like, you're going out there representing all the lifers were right there. Like, man, bro, like you're going to set the tone for the rest of us, bro. Go out there and don't let us down. You know what I mean?
So good, man.
And I'm like, is it still real though? You know what I mean? So when we go through that gate, I'm like, okay, I'm going closer. And then they hand me my $200 gate money. And I'm like, oh man, I haven't had no money in a long time. And I'm just right there. And everybody's already gone. They already went, you know, up to the receiving and releasing. I'm still on the yard holding tank, waiting to go, right? So they end up coming and getting me by myself, and I go up there, and 2 of the staff members were transferring me from there to the Grapevine, and then I was being intercepted by the program to pick me up because I was going straight to the program in downtown. And but right there at the Grapevine, my family, my wife, my son, my dad, he was still alive at that time. They met me there, and we had lunch, and then I told them, you know, I'll see you soon, you know, like in 30 days, I believe I get my first pass, you know, but I need to go to this recovery place. Wow. And I go there, man, and life has just been so great since that time. I stood in the program for almost a year and a half. I was doing outpatient too, though, but I still connected, you know, because it was hard coming home, bro. It was really hard transitioning, you know, because I had gotten so
institutionalized, right?
Yeah, it was, you know what I mean? It was, and it was just like everything was so fast, you know, and it was just like I would get so nervous every time I would go out on passes and stuff. And I would be sweating and nervous. And it was funny too. My wife, on my first pass home, my wife was so mad at me because she just wanted to just hang out. I ended up cleaning her whole house. Like, I was just like, I mean, it wasn't even like filthy, but it's just like, man, what do I do? You know what I mean?
Right.
And I just ended up cleaning her house, and she was just like tripped out. And she was upset at me too, though, because I wasn't allowed to go to my neighborhood, and she had just bought her first house as a young lady. She was still in her 20s when she bought a house. And now I couldn't even move there because she bought a house in the neighborhood. And a part of my conditions, I couldn't go home. So she was like, well, you have like 90 days, while you're in the program. So we'll look to get somewhere else, So I was like, I'll just stay in the program until we get something, But
man, bro,
coming home, though, it's been crazy.
What an amazing story of the power of God, man.
Yeah.
So fast forward to now, bro. Who is Jojo now?
Now Jojo is still married to the same crazy homegirl from back in 91. I have my older son now, who's now 33 years old. I have a 19-year-old. No, 18. I'm adding. Is she 19? No, I think she's 18. Man, I'm like confused right now. Either 18 or 19. And I want to say she's 18. She's 18. Or not, you know what? She is 19. She is 19. And then I have a 16-year-old daughter. I want to say 16.
You're
and then I have my 13-year-old. And then I have my 12-year-old. See, I'm adding an extra year, but I have a 12-year-old son, too. He'll be 13 in August. For sure, he'll be 13 in August because he's turning a teenager, right? So
right.
August. And I own 2 businesses. My wife, we own 2 houses. I have some nice things in my life today, you know what I mean? All because of God. And you know what? I didn't leave my Bible in R&R, man. Let's get that straight. You know what I mean? I came home wanting to serve God and wanting to help people. And it was right away that I ended up going back to the same prison yard that I paroled from almost 3 months later. While on high control parole, the warden invited me back to go and share, share what my first 3 months have been. So I actually went back into prison, and I went back multiple times, and I got back involved in prison ministry to go back and give hope. I do a lot of, street evangelism. I love my church. I'm a part of Abundant Living. Actually, it's called Petra now. And, I love my fellowship there. I'm so close to so many different fellowships, But, like I shared with you earlier, though, when I came home, it was Praise Chapel Baldwin Park that took me under the wing and really got me saturated in the church, you know what I mean? Because even coming to church out here was kind of different, because in there, it's like 24/7 church, all eyes are on you. You have to guard your testimony with every breath, If you stand in front of that TV too long looking at a certain commercial, you're lusting. You got everybody looking at you like, man, look at him. He over there saying he a Christian. He over there lusting, you know what I'm saying? And you got to be careful the way you talk and the way you treat people. And out here, I felt really scared for a minute. Everything, it was just, I just felt scared out here that I was going to fall away from God, because it was I didn't feel it's kind of weird, bro. I don't know how to describe it, but when you're in ministry 24/7 and then, you're just going to church on Sundays, on Wednesdays, it's not enough. So for me to substitute all that empty time is I would still go to the streets and still preach and still, not with the bullhorn, not making, that kind of ruckus, but just finding somebody to share the gospel with. And I've been helping families, since I came home. It seems like God just put that upon my heart to help people that are going through that process. And that was the whole birthing of Trap Families, because these family members that they don't know how to adjust to their loved ones being away and, or dealing with addiction, because I was an addiction specialist by now. I came home and pursued that. And so I was always around families that either had someone incarcerated or somebody on drugs or, of course, the gangbanging lifestyle. I would do gang prevention, intervention.
I love that you took all your experience, good, bad, ugly, God's grace and mercy, and then now you're transforming that into and still imparting it. How many years has it been since you've been out?
This August 14th is going to be 21 years, 2003. 2004. Yeah,
You're still
it's gonna be 21.
partying, still doing the
Still
work.
doing it, and I'm still hungry for God. You know, I still have that hunger for God. I wake up like just asking God, as I asked him back there, you know, just be with me today. Use me if possible, you know, for your glory. And you know, it's just been a humble experience all this time, bro. You know what I mean? And that's where I've always recognized myself as a bondservant of the Lord, you know, and even when I was like a leader in the church, I didn't even like to be looked at as a leader. You know, I don't, for reals, I don't, oh man, I don't want to offend nobody, but I don't like church politics. I don't like being a part of stuff in the church where it's like you're under the scope. You know, I don't mind accountability. Don't get me wrong. I follow my leaders' authorities, you know, what they say it is, but I know what God's called me to do. And that's why I do what I do outside of the church, you know. And it's not like I try to look for the spotlight. I mean, there's been many a times, you know, some of the pastors we were talking about earlier that have, you know, had lunch with me and have asked me to, you know, sit under them for a couple of months, and they would launch me out to be a pastor or whatever. But I've never felt the Lord actually call me for that position. And I've never, I mean, the way I describe it to my wife is like, I'm not trying to fulfill someone else's,
calling,
like their desire.
It's not your calling.
It's not my calling. You know,
It's good. It's always good to know that you're called, what you're called to do, man.
And I believe, and people have prophesied over me that I function best as an evangelist. You know, going and supporting other ministries,
Right.
and you know, and that's what I do. You know, I go support families. I go support ministries. I go support, you know, the people in prison. I go support the homeless. I go support wherever God leads me. You know what I mean? And I don't want to be tied down to, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like being just stuck in the church where, okay, you're in this ministry and that's all you got to do. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I'll do it. You know what I mean? I'm active in my church, but I got to remember who called me. You know what I'm saying?
So good, brother.
Yes.
Well, I thank you for coming out, man.
I appreciate it, man. I mean, I love this, just chopping it up with you,
Chopping it up, man.
Yeah.
We got one last thing, though, that me and Cam do. It's called the Furious Five.
Okay.
And we ask you 5 furious questions. A little fun here, man.
Man, look, you're getting me sweaty.
Question number 1 on the street gospel Furious 5. If you could go back to your neighborhood and eat somewhere, what's the spot that you would take me?
Oh, man, I'll take you to Boca del Rio, man.
Boca del Rio.
I still eat there like almost every Wednesday. I work in my neighborhood.
I heard about that spot.
Yeah, it's a little bit different now, but it's just a simple burrito taco place.
That's it?
And nachos. They have nachos now. But that's it, though.
It's still the spot. After all these years.
After all these years, I'll still go there. I always say that's where my wife fell in love with me.
Uh-oh. There we go. Question number 2 on the street gospel Furious 5. What is your biggest regret? Just one.
Not being a Marine.
That would have changed your life, huh?
That would have changed my life. That was my goal. That was my way of showing my dad that I'm a man. You know, my family, I come from a military family. My uncles, my grandfather, my great-grandfather. And it's like, instead of going to a war defending my country, I was defending the street war.
Question number 3 on the street gospel Furious 5. Is it harder being a Christian or a homeboy?
I would say homeboy.
Why?
Because the Spirit of God is powerful, man, and you walk in liberty and freedom. You know, and being a homeboy, you gotta please people. You gotta wear a certain mask all the time. You gotta walk with that chip on your shoulder, and it's heavy. And when you're finally delivered from that, you can say that, you know what? When God said that He will set you free and free indeed, and that His burden is light and His yoke is easy. Yes.
Question number 4. If somebody played you in a movie, who would you like to play you?
Who would I like to play me in a movie? Oh my goodness, that's a tough one right there. Play me in a movie. I don't know. You got me on that one, man.
Well, yeah, man. What if somebody takes your book and says, "Hey," takes your testimony and goes, "Hey, let's do something with it." You got to start thinking about that, bro.
Yeah, I guess.
I can't. We'll call Noel G. He plays every Mexican.
Yeah, he plays everybody. Yeah, Noel G.
Question number 5, last one for this podcast today. What is your goal here on out? Do you have any?
My goal is, it's very simple. Is to be a servant of God, man. That's it. You know, when I go out, I want people. People are going to know me for all kinds of things, but I want people. when people stand at my graveside on that day, I want people to be like, this was a servant of God. In everything I did, whether it was in counseling, whether it was helping, the less fortunate, whether it was whatever it is, I want them to know me as a servant. Yeah.
Amen, man. Hey, man, we appreciate you coming out. People can find you at
they can find me on Instagram. Everything is under Trapped Families.
Trapped Family.
If they look me up on YouTube, all they gotta do is just put Jojo Godinez. And my story comes up and other ways of them finding me. But I am on Instagram through Trapped Families. I'm on Facebook, Trapped Families. I'm on TikTok, Trapped Families.
TikTok? You're on TikTok?
Yeah, I'm on TikTok.
Come on, man.
Yeah. So I don't do a lot of stuff, but there's some stuff on there, man.
All right. I'm going to look for you on TikTok, man.
Okay.
As long as you ain't doing no dances or something, bro, on TikTok, we're good.
Nah, man, I'm good.
Hey, that'll conclude this episode of the Street Gospel Podcast with Jojo Godinez. Right?
And they can find my book on Amazon.
Yeah, that's right.
They just got to put Jojo Godinez, Reformed. If they put my name, it just pops up.
Okay.
But Reformed, how a life sentence became my saving grace.
Let's go. All right. Pick up his book. We appreciate him coming out. We appreciate all you out there that are listening, following us, watching this right now. We love you guys. We out.